going to bring one more chair up just in case when Josh is done, he wants to come sit with the group. So he doesn't have to stay in the spotlight all the time. Get a chair. And so I'd like to thank them so much tonight for being here. As you know, we've been working for a very long time on the CHS project. And I've asked tonight for Mr. Bowers to start with a reminder of our proposed schedule so that we can talk about where we are in the timeline that was originally planned and then what that timeline is looking like moving forward. We're going to talk about the site plans and floor plans, looking at some of those elevations, and then we're going to share with you the budget and discuss what we need to do moving forward with that construction plan.
Can everybody hear me? Wow, sounds great. Good evening, everyone. I am Josh Bauer with Crabtree Rohrbach, and I'm lucky to be part of this large group of folks that are helping us to put together the Christiansburg High School addition and renovation project. As Dr. Whitaker said, we're going to be going over the schedule, looking at the site plan, the floor plans, some of the exterior elevations, and then also talking about some options for reductions in cost.
Real quick, if you don't mind, Josh, I'm so sorry. I do want to, just before we start, remind the board that this is a different type of build than what we have done in the past. And so I think there might be some questions on how this timeline looks different than before. Some previous projects we've done are what are called design, bid, build. So that means you design the project, you put it out for bid, and then you build. And we're doing a different process this time, which was decided, some time ago. And so what happens here is they're designing, but we have, it's not the bid where it goes out to a bunch of different companies to then decide, and you come back and take the lowest number. So it's a longer, I would say, a little longer process because we're still deciding what does the building look like. And so we do drawings and then we give them to our builders who tell us what that price would be. Then we look at the price and we decide, can we afford that? If not, what are we going to cut from the project? As opposed to a design bid build where you've already decided this is what we want, and then you look at what is brought back to you as prices and choose from there. Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, please feel free anytime. And Dr. Whitaker is correct. So there's so many things, wonderful things about the Commonwealth, but there really are 4 different methods to be able to build a new school. PPEA, which you're familiar with, it's a design bid build. You have the CMAR, and then you also have design build. So there really are 4 different methods. The CMAR was the one that was selected. This was a wise decision earlier in the year that the school board made. And the reason that this was a wise decision is that what we've seen this year, more so than any time in my 25-year career that I've been an architect, is a significant increase in cost of materials and labor. And this is everywhere. You go to buy eggs, you buy gas, everything is increased. When the construction industry, we've seen really kind of 3 big impacts. One is the cost of materials are increasing. The timeline where materials between the time they order and they arrive are significantly increased, and the ESSER funds, which you are familiar with, that has had a big impact on mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors and materials. So those 3 things have had probably some of the most largest impact that we've had. So what's happening is that if you look at the Commonwealth, across the Commonwealth, and the projects that have bid in the last 6-8 months, most of them have been coming in 20, 30, 40, 50% over budget. And so the challenge is that when you do a hard bid with a project, then you have to go through a VE exercise, and you may get pennies on the dollar for what it could cost. So the good news about this process is that we get live data, and branches going back to the subcontractors and working with us to be able to help us make sure that we get the true value. If we reduce something, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but if we reduce something, you get the true value for it, not the pennies on the dollar that we would often see with the design bid build. So what we have up here is the project schedule that we've been working with kind of the change from a design bid build to a CMAR, and we are roughly on schedule. So we provided the drawings to Branch in June, which was what we expected. And Branch did a fantastic job of putting together and going out to their subs and finding the folks that are interested in the project, and coming back with an initial guaranteed maximum price that they did 2 weeks ago, and it really allows us to take that number now and go through, I said, the exercise of what is, what can we reduce in the project, what can we change, what can we think about a little bit differently in order to get our costs down to where they need to be within your budget approved by the board. So the bottom schedule is kind of looking at where we are from today and moving forward. So, over the next couple of months, we're going to be looking at cost reductions and value engineering, along with redesigning the drawings based on those items that are approved. Branch is going to be working back with the subs and saying, okay, this is what our original number was. Now that we've done these reductions and kind of thought about things a little bit differently, now what does the number look like? We'll be going through and doing the final construction documents, going through permitting. As of right now, we're looking at 2 different GMP packages, and GMP is a guaranteed maximum price. And what that does is that Branch is going to give us a final number and a total number of what the project is going to cost, so that you know exactly from the time that we start construction how much this project is going to cost. Starting construction in spring, and then we're going to be working through that going into summer of 2025. So we are roughly on schedule. I said, and everybody has been working very diligently to get the drawings done, get the numbers together, and making sure that we're giving you and spending the best dollars, spending your dollars the best way that we possibly can. And while this is a presentation, please feel free to interrupt at any point if you have a question. Okay, so now let's talk about, yes, ma'am.
This proposed schedule, is this the original proposed schedule, or is this a revised proposed schedule?
So the proposed schedule is a revised proposed schedule based on the fact that we're going to have to spend some time doing some value engineering.
How far off are we from the original?
So right now we're probably around 3 months of time that we're going to be spending. What we hope is that we can make decisions fast, on what they are, go through, revise the drawings, and get them back to Branch. Some couple things that are important though is that not only do we want to go through the cost reduction, the VE exercise, but we also want to keep an eye on what the market is. As we well know, we are officially in a recession as of two solid quarters of reduced GDP. So what hasn't quite happened yet, while we've seen a reduction in gas prices, there hasn't been other reductions yet. So some of the ESSER money, the first round of ESSER money is being spent. So what we're looking at and what Branch and the subcontractor is doing is also keeping an eye on the market. As the market is starting to flatten and starting to decrease, we want to, and I hate to use fire, but we want to fire at the right time and making sure that we're keeping an eye on the market and we're putting this back out and getting those numbers at the right time. So what that could mean is that we may be looking at October, we may be looking at November, and if we're seeing the numbers continue to decrease, we may want to kind of capture things and maybe instead of doing 2 GMPs, maybe we do 3 GMP packages to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for the school division, spending your dollars the wisest. Did that answer your question? Okay, so the site plan, this is a little tiny bit different than we showed back in March because we've thought about things just a little bit differently. So a couple of things that are consistent is that the addition, which is in blue, so the existing building, the main high school and also the Friends School are in yellow. Okay, so those are your 2 existing buildings, and then the addition is in blue, looking just planned south of that, going towards Independence. Some things that are super important is that as we're looking at the site plan, we want to do our best to separate car and bus drop-off. And the bus drop-off is now on the left-hand side. You can kind of see that loop right there, and I could point to it, but you're all looking towards me. So on the left-hand side is where the buses are going to be. So in the morning, you have the buses coming off Independence, and then what they'll do is they'll stack, nose to tail, and drop off as they go, and they may come in groups of 2 or 3 and be able to drop off. In the afternoon, you kind of see those angled parking spaces. That's called chevron parking. And so the buses in the afternoon are going to park, and the students at the time of the bell, when there's dismissed, when the buses are standing still, will exit out of the building and enter those buses. Once all those buses are full, then those buses will leave. We found it to be the most efficient and also the safest way for buses to be able to park in the afternoon and be able to leave. As we go to the kind of the...
And Josh, if you need to, I think that microphone might be portable, so if you wanted to, they could, you could probably walk over there with it and point to things if you felt more comfortable doing that.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, I think that would help them, and.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I can't promise that I can reach
You have to
everything.
say microphone check, 1, 2. No.
So I know that I can touch all the low stuff, but anything higher is probably not going to work for me. This is the bus loop. Okay, so again, the buses would come in in the morning. They would just drop off. The main entrance to the building is located right here. So what would happen is that everybody would be able to exit out of the buses and be able to go right in the front entrance. The car drop off is actually going to be coming down off of North Franklin, and then we'll loop around, and the cars will be dropping off here again, going at that same entrance. So the idea is that what we try to do, we want to try to manage and have the least amount of staff, entering and controlling the students entering the building. So what we want is both the bus and the car drop off to be entering at the same spot. As we well know, the parking for the building is currently right here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're shifting the parking and we're putting it up, running it vertically here, so that way that the staff, staff and visitors will be parking. Visitor parking here, staff is here. Student parking would stay over on this side. But everything that is dark gray in color is what is going to be new. And this is some things that are important. As it is separating that car and that bus drop off, and trying to get the flow. Some things that we've heard from the town is, hey, can you guys do an awesome job of getting as many cars and buses off of Independence? And that is exactly what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to keep Independence clear, and also trying to keep North Franklin clear. So I said, but from the overall standpoint, I said what we're doing is we're going to be increasing the overall amount of parking, and I said, and really trying to do as good of a job as possible separating the car and the bus drop off, if that makes sense for everybody. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't bring the right thing. So we are still proposing this to put the addition on the front of the building. So that the addition does a couple things for us. One is that as we get into it, that'll allow us to have natural daylight in the classrooms, but also that gives us a new face for the building. Some of the things that we heard about in the beginning is, Josh, can we, well, the building is a beautiful building. It was built in the 1970s. Things in the 70s weren't always quite as awesome as they could be. So can we get some more daylight, and can we give some more life and give a new face to it? So the addition, we intentionally placed it on Independence, so that way I said that you're coming into a new face of the building. And one of the other goals was to make improvements to the Friends School. So we are looking at, and as we talked previously in the past, the thoughts were, okay, do we, with the Friends School, we're giving kind of new life here, but do we kind of give the same character, that same metal panel and things? And the more that we looked at this and said, is that really doing a service to the school? Or do we truly look at the Friends School and make sure that we keep the historic character and the same character the building currently has, give it new windows, give it new roof, clean the building up, but not necessarily change the aesthetic of the building? And that's what we're proposing, is to really keep the same character of the school, but make all those improvements and give it new life. Okay, so as we look at the building, the addition is from this line down. So your existing gym and auditorium are there, and this is your existing admin space. So the thought is, from a construction standpoint, is to build the addition relatively first. So what's going to happen is that we're going to be changing some of the parking during the school year with the drop off and the for both bus and cars. Those things are going to happen, so that way, as we get into the spring semester, that's already done, and we're trying to keep the flow as clean as possible. But the addition is going to happen first, and so the front entry is right here. I said Independence. This is Independence is down on this side. The pink area here is your nurse and your administrative suite. The idea is here is that, as I said, everybody's going to be entering at one point for in the morning and car and bus drop off, but also after hours. That this would also be your after-hour entrance. So regardless of whether you're coming during, in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, everybody's using the same entrance all the time. So that's always the focal point. So we have your admin and nurse here. On the left-hand side, we have your dining hall, along with your cafeteria and food court. We'll stay in the addition. So now, as you look at the addition, on this level, we have both your math and social studies are on this floor. you're saying, wow, Josh, that's an interesting idea. Is that, normally what you see is, math and science next to one another, and then English and social studies. And that's a great point. I love the fact that you're thinking about it. So one of the things that's important is when we get to the second floor, English is on the second floor. They specifically asked to be close to the library, close to the media center. So that's why we have this program being math, and then social studies. Math is on the lower floor from the science. We'll have that in a minute. So on the corner is your client collaborative area, your toilets, your storage, and your faculty room. So the idea is kind of at the intersection of the corridor is where kind of the student hub activity is, where they're, so they're going potty, teachers, the faculty room is there, and then also you have your collaborative learning area. So now as we go in the existing building, you have your auditorium, which we're going to be doing light renovation. And then adjacent to that auditorium is going to be all of your performing arts spaces, your music, your choral, your theater spaces, your black box theater. All the spaces are going to be around the theater, which is where they belong. And then just below your main gym is currently your team rooms, your wrestling room. And I know everybody's a big fan of the column that's right in the middle of the wrestling room. I know you're a fan of it, but we're going to have to slide it over so that way it's not right in the middle of the room. And that will be, and that is part of the project. So we are beginning doing some light renovations in the team rooms, the locker rooms, and also your health classrooms. One thing that's, I'm sorry, go ahead. So they can if they want to go to the front door, but while we don't want to talk about security, what we are looking to do is have card access at every exterior door. So every teacher and staff member is going to have card access. So the teachers will be able to go to a point where there is a door and be able to access there if the administration is okay with that. We're not here to tell you how to operate the building, but that is not, they don't have to go to the front door to be able to access the building.
That front is full. And there will be, Josh, there's some parking out front as well, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. There are parking spaces here, and there's also a parking here. So possibly your administrative staff could park here, and they can go right to the front door. It's very close parking. So one of the things that we were thinking with the small parking lot is this could be both your administrative staff or guidance nurse and admin, and also your cafeteria staff, because this is where they're going to be the closest to it.
That's a great question. I had that right here. Will you share with them about the two types of restrooms?
Yes, ma'am. So I particularly love potties. Is this on video?
That's a lot of information there, Josh.
So I particularly love potties because it has been a very hot topic in the Commonwealth for the last 12 months. So there's things that are a challenge when you're talking about potties is the bullying. Now, for somebody big like me, I never got bullied in the bathroom, but other people did. So bullying has been a problem forever. The amount of nonsense with TikTok, and really two things has happened. One is the toilet paper dispensers and the paper towels and all that stuff being destroyed. And the latest one, which is really adorable, is the fights. Where they put like 20 kids in the bathroom and then they decide to fight and they video it, which is super awesome. That was it, yeah. And then obviously the other challenges that we have is what is happening, with boys and girls being able to share bathrooms, and what can we do to make things better for these different environments. Now, what we can say is, hey, admin, this is your problem. You guys figure it out. And this is your problem to deal with, or we can tackle things a different way. So when we look at, we have two different types of bathrooms in where the students are, which is we have students in this space, it's actually on the upper floor. But so wherever we have student toilet rooms, what we're showing here is to have a open toilet room, okay, with individual stalls. Okay, so the idea here is that when you're coming down, you're going to be able to see into the area where you're washing your hands, where your soap, your paper towel, all of that is going to be open, and then the individual stalls are going to be from floor to ceiling, full doors and floor to ceiling. So the idea is when you're doing your most private activity, you are completely private. So you can't look from stall to stall or from inside to outside. Here in the U.S., we are not super awesome about privacy when it comes to potties. We are not. You know, hey, let's put a gap between the door, between the door and the toilet, and also let's put a 2-foot gap in the bottom so that way you can see what everybody's shoes are wearing.
Oh, the ones like in the old Christiansburg Middle School.
Right.
Look out.
or in Maryland. I was at a rest stop in Maryland where the doors were only 4 foot high, and even I could see over top of them. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? So they were challenged. So what was awesome in 2015, Virginia Building Code said, hey, you can. So before 2015, you had to either have a boy or a girl or men's and women's toilets, and that's the only way that it counted. So when we had to do our plumbing counts, if you did a non-gender or a unisex toilet, it didn't count in the mix. In 2015, Virginia said, wait a second here. Why are we doing this? If you have a toilet, it counts as part of the mix, regardless of whether it's a boy or girl. Here's what they said is if you do a non-gender toilet, a toilet stall, okay, it has to go from floor to ceiling, and you cannot have a gap between the door and the wall itself. So when you're coming down, you can't see everybody, inside the body. So what we're showing here is that every single stall, as it is floor to ceiling, every single one of them is completely private. So when you're doing your most private activity, no one can see you in there. But from the standpoint of the bullying, from all the other nonsense that's happening, as administrators, it is fully open. When it is open and there is no behind the wall, people are more behaved. When there's glass in between space A and B and you can be seen, you're more apt to behave yourself than if you are behind a wall and you know that nobody can look inside there. So these toilets are only in the student areas. When you look to outside of the auditorium, outside of the gymnasium, where public is going to be visiting, where public is going to be in those spaces, parents, grandparents, we have regular boys and girls toilet rooms in those spaces. But outside of that, so where the students are going to be, we are looking and moving to this open plan design. These are the same designs that we're doing in Hanover and in Amherst and all over, because I said what we're hearing from administrators is, Josh, can you please help us? And it's great that we take full responsibility to make sure the behavior is there, but can we come up with a better design that starts to solve some of the problems that is currently going on, both now and in the future?
Josh, if you will, 1 sec. This is a little bit of a change that came into place once we kind of started working as a team on the project. And so we wanted to make sure there were 2 types of restroom, because I feel like different students feel comfortable in different spaces. And so some kids might feel really comfortable going in the individual stall, where some kids might say, I'm really comfortable going to, a gender-assigned bathroom. So we wanted to make sure, both for the public, but also for our students, that there were 2 types of options of restrooms within the building. So you'll see that duplicated on both floors. Yes, so it would be open, the sinks will be in the middle, and then students choose what, just like, say you're going to, I don't know, I'm trying to think where you go and you just pick a bathroom, but you're going just anywhere you go in, you could walk in, somebody else can walk out. They're not assigned for any specific student. So any student who is comfortable could use those, or you can go to the bathrooms that are specific.
Starbucks right now, and any new restaurant that's open, they are now all doing a non-gender based, so it's just whoever goes in there, and then the next person.
I don't get out.
Target dressing rooms. Dressing rooms in Target are like that.
So did that answer your question on the restrooms? Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was hoping for.
So now as we go to the upper level, let's go back to the entrance here. So this is the media center, your library. And then on the upper floor we have guidance or student services. So one of the things that what we found is, as we're doing the design, is that because of the number of students, the number of staff, is that the admin and nurse and guidance end up being a huge area of space. And we said, okay, what can we do to kind of shrink that up and make sure that all the offices have natural light, and that it doesn't become this large expanse. So what we do is we actually put the guidance or student services on the second floor with this white area as an intercommunicating stair. So that way, if there's any challenges that's happening on the upper level or the lower level, staff can easily get from one place to another. The other thing is that when students, and I love all admin folks, but students often look at admin as being a punishment zone. Your principals and assistant principals are often, from a student standpoint, often considered more of a punishment over an authority, whereas student services or guidance are often a nurturing. So by placing them on separate floors, students are often more comfortable to be able to go to guidance and say, hey, I'm having challenges and I want to be nurtured. It's not really in the same area as administration. So we're finding to either separate them or put them on different floors. It's a very successful way for students to be able to get the services they need. So on this level, says in the blue area is the English classrooms or language arts. Again, their desire was to be as close to the media center as possible. And then the green spaces are science. So we intentionally had science here because the desire for science was to have a relationship to CTE, which is this space here, and specifically to have a relationship with robotics. So that's why the science is here. As we were evolved in the design, and I said this has changed from October of last year till now, is that as we reduce the number of classrooms in the classroom wing, we end up having a bridge. So essentially, this is on the upper level. As we look at this is basically below that. So vehicles can still access the mechanical and electrical rooms down here, and also access the back of the auditorium, access the band room, and then be able to drive back out. There is a fence here to control this, but the idea here is that basically this portion of the building on the upper floor is one that you would drive underneath to be able to get to that space. And so essentially this is a bridge that connects it. And this is the CTE spaces. We are making some small modifications to CTE as far as classrooms moving around. Again, spending our dollars the best way that we can. We are trying to keep some of the big programs like automotive and not moving some of the large equipment. A couple big things that was asked for is by Mr. Husband, who is really you're a fantastic leader here for your entire CTE department. So a couple things that was requested is one is, can we have a consistent classroom and lab space for CTE? Because really right now you do not have that at Christiansburg High School. So what we're showing is you see the dark blue are the classrooms and the light blue is the labs. So not only do we have a classroom for every lab, but we also have visibility from the classroom into the lab space itself. Another request was, hey, we have some of the labs where we actually have the public who has an opportunity to visit, and that's cosmetology, that's the child care. So what we do is we kind of move them around so that way we can have a secure entrance right here. So cosmetology is located here, and the child care is located here. And the idea is that folks can park right there and be able to bring their children right in. Same thing with the cosmetologies, they can park and then come down and be able to come into the cosmetology lab itself. So we're trying to make these as public friendly as possible, because what we want is we want our students to be able to interact with the public and have that relationship. That really is a huge benefit for the program. So as we come down, we have some of your drafting art spaces. You have world language, along with and this is all in the existing building here. This is the weight room, and then we have some business labs. The green is your special education spaces, including life skills, your main gym, and then what we're showing here adjacent to that is a auxiliary gym. So adjacent to the main gym.
Josh, if you don't mind, real quick, one sec. Would you go back to the first slide? So in the original design, up in the top left, above the yellow, yeah, right there. That was where some time back, the last plan that you may have seen had an exterior gym on the outside. And we have removed that. It was just too cost prohibitive. So there is still going to be an auxiliary gym in the plan, but I did want to specifically note that because some folks may have not heard that piece before.
So that was the piece where the indoor track and all that facility would have
That
been.
project kind of went from, I think, 140 meters to 160 meters to 200 meters. The building itself, you can see, was almost the size of the existing high school. And it was just not going to be something that was going to be able to fit within the budget. And so we pulled back and asked Josh to add the auxiliary gym so that we didn't continue to move forward with plans that we knew we were not going to be able to afford.
And the auxiliary gym will be a full-size gym.
So I'll have him explain to you what the pieces are in there, but I did just want to note that so that people were aware of that change.
Yes, and this is really exciting. So you really do have a really beautiful main gymnasium. It's a beautiful space. Some things that we're going to look to enhance is we're going to replace the bleachers. If you're familiar with your gym, you kind of have this kind of no man's land that exists behind your existing bleachers. We're going to go ahead and make it so that way that it becomes usable space. It becomes usable space. So the bleachers will actually be from the back wall moving forward, and we'll have bleachers on both sides. And then what we're proposing to do is add a full basketball court auxiliary gym with bleacher spaces and storage. And what this will allow you to do, and we're intentionally also placing them adjacent to one another to have a physical connection. So one of the great things that when you're doing any type of large sport activities, whether it's basketball, wrestling, or volleyball, that to have that interconnection when you're having a large event. And we're intentionally having a connection to the two so that way you can go from one gym to another for a larger event. And it really becomes a huge benefit. But yes, ma'am, we are looking at doing a full basketball court. A basketball court is around 6,600 square feet, and this gym is about 9,000 square feet. It's just a little under 9,000 square feet for the gym, so it's a little bit larger. And part of the reason for that is if you play basketball, and everybody knows I'm a really big basketball player, is that when you play basketball, you need some distance between the backstop and also on the sides to make sure you have the bleachers and you're not running right into the wall. So this is not like a elementary school auxiliary gym. This is a full basketball court. The locker rooms are on the lower level, right here. Locker rooms and team rooms are where they currently are, just below the main gym.
Can we go back to the locker room?
Sure.
Has there been any discussion about changing rooms in the locker room? Is there anything specific regarding our transgender folks?
So a couple things that we're doing. One is that we're removing the multi-person showers, which become storage rooms. So for those of us who remember when you were kids, you basically stood around a room and, whether the post was in the center of the room or was on the outside. So what we're doing is we're getting rid of those and we're taking those and making those individual showers. What we want to do is we want to encourage students to wash themselves, whether it's before or after gym class, but also do it with privacy. When we were kids, cell phones didn't exist, and people didn't walk in with saying, your students here don't do that, but in other school divisions, they do inappropriate things like that. So we are looking to make individual showers, but the answer is yes. So with individual changing stations, we're looking at two things. One is having individual changing rooms inside of the boys and girls team rooms, and locker rooms, but also in the quarter, having the opportunity for changing stations in the quarter. So if a student doesn't want to, and they're not comfortable with going all the way into the locker room, to be able to get changed, whether they don't want to see things or they don't want to have folks see them, we are looking to have changing stations that students can be comfortable in going in to be able to get changed and then go to phys ed or go to class. And again, it is not just a transgender issue. It is a bullying issue. It is all the other inappropriate behavior that happens. The students are uncomfortable getting changed in front of other students because of the challenges that we have. So what we're looking to do is trying to create two different opportunities, if I can spit it out, where they can either go into the team rooms or locker rooms, or they can simply we're looking to have changing stations, in the outside, so they don't even have to go into those spaces to be able to get changed and be able to go out into phys ed or into sports. The inside or the outside? So we're looking to put cameras in the quarters to be able to make sure that all the spaces are monitored with cameras. And plus, you're going to have your phys ed teachers.
And there should be adults, if we're having students who are changing, we should have adults assigned. Now, I see what you're saying. If there's an adult in the locker room, right, who may be outside. And so that would be certainly something that we would need to handle administratively. If it's teams, that's different because their coaches would be the ones responsible. During the school day, it would likely be, typically that changing takes time at certain places, the beginning and end of class. And so I would say those teachers would work together to man that space. Or the administrative team, but that would be something that school would solve.
Josh, are you saying that, I'm just trying to understand on those spaces that you said are outside the locker room. So we're doing kind of when you say it's gender neutral, it's kind of like we're doing like non-gendered bathrooms, which, and I agree with you, it's not just a transgender issue, it solves a ton of other problems. I guess I do question on that one why we would still put in I mean, I understand what you're saying about people being comfortable with things, but why would we invite those same problems back into half the bathrooms or a third of the bathrooms or whatever we're talking about?
So the perspective that I brought to that conversation was thinking through just different kids and adults that I know. I think that there's some people who would say, I feel really comfortable going into a private stall because there's nobody else around me. I think there's others who would say, I'm not real comfortable coming out of a private stall because anybody who goes in knows that I'm the one that came out, And so I think some people would more prefer to do their private business in a place where they may not be concerned about, a boy or a girl walking in after them. I just think individuals have very different needs. And I think there's some kids who wouldn't feel comfortable in the singles in the same way because they might be afraid that somebody would walk in behind, that somebody else would walk in behind them. I don't know how to say that in a better way. Bathrooms are not always the cleanest smelling places. And so I think some kids literally don't go to the bathroom at school because of whatever fear it is they have that somebody else will know what they're doing in there. There are a lot of kids who don't go to the bathroom at school. And so by offering both types of options, I think there are kids who would want both of those options because I know kids like that. So that was just kind of trying to think through what would meet the needs of a variety of students and be long-lasting and make sure that kids feel comfortable and safe where they are.
What's the percentage of that we're splitting that? Is it roughly 50-50 or is it something
40
else?
maybe?
Probably closer to 60-40 with the non-gender being 60, being higher.
So then going back to the locker rooms then, so that gets a little harder to manage and whatnot, but I don't know if it needs to be or not. I'm sure that we're constrained in this building by some level of space, right? But you're saying that there's going to be a male and female locker room, but then within that, I know that we've built in some privacy. But then on the outside, you're saying that are there gender neutral
Changing
changing
stations, yes.
areas? Is that what we're saying?
And right, they would be kind of similar to a toilet room, so they're going to be about the same size as a toilet stall, just like Target, your Target changing rooms. It's kind of basically the same thing, except there will be a full door. And the idea is that if you're not comfortable in going into the the boys or the girls locker room, is that you can go into one of the booths, for what you will, and be able to change in that space.
Okay.
So we're placing them on the main corridor. You can see them right here. We're placing them on the main corridor, so they are kind of in a main thoroughfare from the standpoint they're not tucked away to where the goal is to try to limit inappropriate behavior. Does that make sense? And we've been asked to do this on multiple levels. Changing rooms seem to be the most popular in regards to middle schools and high schools. We have made the full change over in a couple of school divisions where there's no boys and girls locker rooms, and basically they are stalls all the way around. So you go into the space, there's lockers in the center. You go into one of the changing rooms, you change, and then you come out, you put your stuff in the locker, and then you go out, and there's boys and girls sharing the same space. Again, it's all in preference. That is only one time that we've done that. For the most part, most folks look at it more the sense of have let's have changing rooms for the privacy and for the safety of the students, and that becomes that seems to be the more popular route to go right now. Any other questions on? And again, we can visit this as long as we want. And then we have some your locker area. What's interesting is that lockers, when we were kids, it was a cool thing to have. You decorated them out. It's becoming less cool of a thing. Now my oldest is in college, but I remember walking her through as a freshman. And I'm like, honey, I've been doing our educational architecture for 25 years, and I said, honey, let's go get your locker. She's like, oh, Dad. She's like, you're so uncool. Nobody does lockers anymore. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I just dealt with that today. You think that I would know that, but as a parent, sometimes you're not always the same thing as you are as a professional. So we are looking at about 300 lockers, which is what the number of students that are currently using lockers right now. So, and the good news is that you just bought lockers, so we're going to be able to reuse those brand new lockers that you just bought a couple of years ago in this space. And I said that we have a connection. We do have the ability to kind of see with a double height cafeteria space, which we'll talk about in a little bit on some of the options to be able to save some money. So are there any questions on the floor plans before we kind of hop into the elevations? So these are very similar to what you've seen in the past as far as the elevations. This is standing at the bus loop on Independence, and this is the kind of that front door looking at your looking at administration. So this is the front door, your administrative suite, guidance, your media center, and then your cafeteria is over on this side. So really we are having a significant transition from what is there to what this is. Some of the orange is a metal panel, along with the gray is metal panel. We are looking at adding both split face and ground face block, and then also brick to kind of give it a brand new face. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about is, as we're looking at potential cost savings, is possibly kind of reducing this canopy back just a little bit. Still having it there, but maybe kind of making it a little bit more modest than we currently have, and then also making some small edits on the windows to maybe where the metal band kind of continues around, and we go from what's called a curtain wall to a storefront, which will have a significant decrease in costs, but still allow a lot of daylight to come in and a lot of great views. It's not. It's not really orange. It's kind of a yellowish. So it can be whatever color you would like it to be. If you'd like it blue, so for.
I don't think this is a decision we need to be making right now. I mean, I trust the architects. One thing that is.
Pick the color.
When I look at the elevations, one thing that I see and recognize is the brick of the old building. You can see that.
Yes.
Right? So, that wasn't painted blue either. If it was, I'm sure they probably would have picked the blue,
There
right?
was only slits in the windows and it's all brick. And this has metal panels and it should be blue, but not blue.
We would love to make some edits to the elevations. So the good news is that we're going to be making some edits anyway. So we will go through and blue and orange, right? Isn't that the colors down here? I'm kidding. Don't throw anything at me. I'm just joking.
Maroon and orange.
So so as part of this, thank you for the comments. And I said what we'll do is as we're going through and making some edits to this, kind of doing a little bit of reductions, we'll go through and provide some metal panel options for colors. Because again, we want this to be a beautiful building that's complementary to Christiansburg. Okay. Now this is going down with Independence to our back. This is that knuckle, where the student bathrooms are, along with the collaborative learning space. There's your entrance, kind of looking down there, but instead you can see that really the face of the building does have a significant change. Lots of glass, lots of natural daylight to be able to come in. We can even do the Christiansburg C logo here on the corner. And so we are going to do some small edits to the canopies and reduce them back a little bit to make them just a little bit more modest and try to reduce the costs. So where do we stand project cost-wise? We developed the drawings over the last 8 to 12 months. So Branch and their team did a wonderful job of putting together an initial GMP, and they came back with roughly for the construction costs, and that is when we're looking at those costs, the site, that's the building, general conditions, the CMPs, basically kind of all of the pieces of their puzzle, totals about just shy of $106 million. We have the design team fees, which is all the architects, the engineers, the plumbers, all the folks that are actually doing the design. FF&E, that is your furniture, your equipment, along with IT pieces. We're looking at that about 5% of the overall budget. The change order allowance, we're going to have unforeseen conditions. We're going to have challenges. We're going to have bad soils. We're going to have rock. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff because that's what happens during construction. So we're looking at holding a change order allowance of about $10 million. So right now, we're looking at a total project cost of about $128 million, which we know exceeds your current dollars that you have. So we've already, over the last week, started to think and work on options. We had a fantastic meeting last week.
Does this include, those numbers include the field house?
No, they do not include the field house.
Say field house, you mean the one that's already completed? Or the
Not field house.
auxiliary?
I mean the track,
Yes.
the indoor track.
There is no indoor track.
Yeah, okay.
But the
That's my-
auxiliary gym, yes.
No.
She's talking about the gym that we took off that.
But we took off? No. No, that would have
This
been
does
another
not.
30
So this
million.
includes what we've just seen.
What you just saw.
Got it. That's what I was trying to get.
So I said over the last, Branch gave us the numbers 2 weeks ago, and over the last 2 weeks, we started looking at some options, for doing the cost reductions. We talked a little bit about that, including, possibly moving some of the new classrooms in the addition over into the existing building. One of the things that Dr. Whitaker and us are going to talk about a little bit is, again, making sure that we understand, again, what is the board's vision, and making sure that any reductions that we're proposing are going to be still meeting those desires of the board. So what we are looking to do is possibly move some more classrooms in the existing building, keeping daylighting, as a focus and making sure they have the windows in there, but possibly eliminating that bridge connection. That bridge connection is as much a big challenge to construct, and not having that kind of connect all the way around. So that would be, that is one way that we're looking to do some cost savings. We talked a little bit about reducing those, the entrance canopy, that big canopy that's at the top there, reducing that on Independence Boulevard. Also modifying the window design and going away from curtain wall where the windows go from, all 2 stories, and kind of reducing that, still allowing daylight to come in, lots of great vision on the inside. Also the cafeteria, the dining space is 2 stories in height. So we're looking at some options of either putting some classrooms on the upper level, or what if we move the auxiliary gym and put that over top of the dining room. And then we're also going to be looking at additional design options, and additional cost reductions, because we understand that we only have the dollars that we can work with. And I said the super good news is that, and we have full faith that Branch is going to continue to be an amazing team player and help us take this from the $128 million down to that $100 million the mark, and still we're going to deliver an amazing building that is going to transform Christiansburg High School.
Did something with bridge connection, will that change the side of what the design of what the
So it would change this piece. So the C would change, or the C would stay the same because this portion would remain the same. But right about here is where that bridge would go. Would no longer have that piece there.
would that also take away the outdoor dining and the student outdoor space and things like that? Would that be also a reduction by eliminating that? Or
Can you go back to the overhead form? I think that might help them kind of see some of that.
all that white area right there? I mean, I know that's probably not.
The hard part, so Jamie, that is something that we've talked a lot about. But what happens when you do that is then you don't have the windows on that side, It makes a lot of sense to push it up. There are some structural things that need to be addressed there in that auditorium, but the directive was make sure everything has light. So I think that's a part of what we need to talk about today, or what are those priorities when we're making changes. What Josh was sharing there, Josh, will you shine your light on the bridge?
Yes, so it's right here.
So that bridge is a significant cost because, we're having to make sure that those cars are being able to get underneath of that and the classes are being on top of it. In working with the team, the architects and our team and with our builders, we feel like that would be a big change that would really be able to bring us some reinvestment. But that's also something then we got to look at how to get all the way around to the classes, right? Because you don't want to have a 7-minute class change because you can't get from one place to the other. So, those are logistics and things that we've worked a little bit through, but need to really hear, is every room having light still the priority? Do you want us to look at, utilizing some options that may allow us to get indirect light into the rooms. Those are things that I think that we need to talk about because we've got a big chunk to cut, from this project.
So, along with the bridge, what's going to happen is that, sorry, wrong way, is that again, science would shift down because we would look at moving one program. So it's math, science, English, or social studies would move over to the existing building. So we would end up stopping the building somewhere around here. So for a student to be able to get to CTE, they would just travel around is either option A, or option B is that, and we haven't even talked about this yet, is that, we could have a canopy, an overhead canopy that could connect in. It wouldn't necessarily, it would prevent the students from getting rained on and snowed on in the space, but they could walk, from here across and then up into the space. So that is another option. While we haven't discussed it yet, that would allow the students to walk outside. We would have it fenced, and the students will be able to go and connect into the CTE space and not have to go necessarily all the way around the building to be able to do that.
That would just be the students that have to take those classes.
Yes, ma'am.
It wouldn't be
Right.
all students, just those.
Right.
Some of those classes that he's talking about moving, we could, if we were, we're looking at a double-story cafeteria, and when we say that, it's open space on top. So it's not a double seating level cafeteria, it's just very vaulted ceilings. You could take some of those classes and then put them above the cafeteria instead of having vaulted. That would allow you to move some of those classrooms over there and maybe some, there's just a lot of considerations for us to look at in terms of that. If they're wall to wall, there won't be light on the inside.
Well, if they were on this wall,
The challenge,
you did two on that wall, there, at the end of the auditorium, because you wouldn't have light there, I wouldn't think. You would have light on this side and light on this side.
The one side of the hallway, you would have light. Yes, but the other side of the hallway may not. So the outside of each classroom has light right here? Yes.
it's right here.
Right there, that wall doesn't have light, I wouldn't think, except for your stage, correct?
Correct, right? This is all brick.
Okay, so would you not like put two classrooms there to where there would be an open wall there along with it? You just wouldn't have as wide of a court. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And that is that we're really exploring all of the options. And as we continue to meet with the administrative and the project management team to look at, say, okay, here's an option that we believe is cutting square footage. And if we cut square footage, what are the dollar figures equal there? And then how does that affect the design and the flow of the building?
So we're talking about more kids and we're already over capacity. So as far as square footage, they said when they were walking through there on back to school last night, just the freshman class was taking up higher hallway. So that, therein lies my concern with
We would have classes back in the building.
So that's a great point. So with the addition, I said they're still going to allow a lot more space than there's currently there. We're going from roughly 220 to about 330,000 square feet. So we're adding about 100,000 square feet to the building. What we are not proposing with any concept is to reduce the number of classrooms. That is not what we're talking about. So we're going to keep, we are still looking at a 1,600 student capacity. We're in no way, shape, or form are we proposing to reduce that from 16 to 14 to 1,200 because we understand that Blacksburg is already at capacity, and you're darn near full here now. And the last thing we want to do is spend $100 million to only turn around and have a building that's full from day one. That's not going to be to anybody's benefit. So So what we're trying to do, and we'll be doing this over the next month and a half, is trying to come up with creative ways to keep the building awesome, and to get us back under that budget without reducing capacity and without kind of squeezing everything together, if that makes sense.
Josh, I just want to clarify, we're at 1,400 square feet, right, on the design that we've been talking about with the 1,600 max at the way the state calculates, but the numbers we've been talking are at a 1,400 capacity, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So yes, we are designing this for 1,400, but that is with, but the way that the Commonwealth looks at it is that every class would be full at the same time. I apologize if I said that
Okay, I
incorrectly.
just wanted to clarify, because that's one question that, that keeps kind of being brought up, and I just want to be consistent in the way we're communicating it.
Yes, ma'am.
So here's my input on this. I think I appreciate, I love this design, I love the reuse. As far as cost reduction, I would probably support having classrooms. I don't know, to me, I don't know, I know that people want light, and I think we've brought a lot of that in. I would certainly defer to the community if they felt differently, but when we talk about priorities, one thing about the big space of the existing building is that there's a lot of cool things that you guys can do with that, right? Outside of maybe direct sunlight. And I think that that's okay. I don't know that every single classroom has to have direct sunlight, especially if it's big enough. There's certainly certain subjects that might be better suited for those types of classrooms. So to me, I look at that and say, if that seems like the easiest way to get the money back. Move some of those classrooms in, eliminate the bridge. I would hate to see that entrance and that cafeteria. To me, that would be a lower priority. I like the idea of having a one-story cafeteria with a gym on top. I mean, look, I don't want to, you're the architect, so if you can come up with something really cool that solves the problem and still looks great and makes people proud, that's fantastic, go for it. But I would hate to give up kind of that grand entrance or at least a nice space, or two within the new building, because I think that's what gives people pride, I think, in their new building. They drive past the school and they go, wow, look at that, and I want people to be able to do that, I think that's good for not just the people of Christiansburg, I think that's good for the whole county, I think for us to have good county schools that we can all be proud of. So to me, I go back to the list that you had, yeah, and as far as reducing the size of some of the other canopies and things like that, yeah, if you can still kind of keep there's things you can do with design, I trust, and save money and keep kind of the same function.
Is there a dollar amount that goes along with each of these items?
There will be. We have to kind of redo the design to be able to give it to.
Because you're asking us for our thoughts on priorities, but without knowing how much each of these costs.
So that's the hard part, right? You design a building, and then you get the price, and so that's kind of this process is us getting ideas so we know what to draw, because each drawing, he pulls his whole team together, and then what happens is our building team, they have to work with all the subcontractors and get all the prices, and we only want to do that so many times before we lose interest from those individuals. And so we don't have a price on them by chunks because there's so many components that change, right? Some of it, we have a lot of structural work that needs to be done in different parts of the building. We have different things. So it's not as simple just to say this piece costs this, because it may change this piece and that piece, and it makes it a lot harder for us to parcel them out because everything kind of hinges on each other. If you go back, Josh, to the above picture for me. Yes, this one. Yeah, either one. So the white space in between, Jamie, that you were talking about there, that outdoor seating. My personal thought on that is I like the idea, but I think it wouldn't get used a lot. And here's why. There's classrooms right there. And then that also requires people to be outside watching the students. And so I just don't see a lot of teachers wanting kids right outside their window while they're eating. And so while I like the idea, I think the reason it was pulled away from the building was to get the light on that side. I think, our team has talked a lot, and they have a lot of opinions as well to bring to the table. that could say, that could make a difference there in moving it up as opposed to building a complete different building separate from the other one. We have work we need to do structurally, correct, on the auditorium. And so, those are options, but if the idea is every room needs light, then that's not an option, right? Moving that wall isn't something that we can look at or that we would want to ask them to draw and price out because that continues to take more time. And also, as our builders have talked to us about, our subcontractors only want to do this so many times because it's work for them. So we will lose their interest if we pitch too many different jobs out.
Shinsburg High School has no light. So, whether every single classroom has the window that's perfect, I mean, to me, I would think there would be, whether it's a skylight or whatever it may, or just like you said, Mark, there might be something that, if you're, I don't know, developing film, you may not want a big window in your room. So that is an idea, but to say every single, because right now, yeah, everybody says light because there's none at all. And so I think in order for it to happen and for us to get it, if we have to give up a few things, I think we have to be willing to do so.
And I don't know how much you guys have gone back and forth on the capacity versus the future, which I totally agree with you on. But going back to your list of possibilities to get us there, again, because I would, the rest of the board may feel differently, but I would rather not give up something that's really cool, like the cafeteria, just to save a small, tiny percentage of the budget. But if we're, we do tend to build things here. We're certainly in a mode where we're kind of building barely to capacity, and then we're having to come back and do stuff later, which is not ideal, but and it's not smart. But it's also where, realistically, to some degree, it's where we're at. And so from that point of view, anything that you guys can do with the design where things can be, I won't say, I think modular is the wrong word, but having, let's say, well, we don't need that part of the wing, so not only eliminate, well, we can keep all this other stuff if we just eliminate that because we don't need it, but it's part of the long-term plan, and in 10 years, when we've gone and taken care of the other burning fire projects that we have to take care of, and maybe the supervisors give us more money for the capital stuff, we circle back around in a shorter amount of time. I know it's not ideal, but if that's what we have to start thinking at some point, as a second or third option before we start, eliminating some of the more aesthetically pleasing parts of the project, that's probably what I'd rather see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, the first design that we were repeatedly shown and gotten everybody all excited about, I can't tell you how disappointed, frustrated, and some words I won't use tonight, about that not being a reality even from the beginning. The idea of putting covered walkways in for students to go from one class to another takes me back to my years at the old Christiansburg High School, and I don't care how covered it is or what fence you put up, the rain and the snow, you're in it. In Auburn, we did our best to eliminate that situation. So I just cannot imagine that happening again. Putting the auxiliary gym on top of the cafeteria, absolutely not. The layout that we have there is the best that it could possibly be. I can just envision my mother being able to go from one JV game to a varsity game that may be going on at the same time because we have the capacity to do it, not to mention the impact that could have on the length of time that students were in games and not sleeping or taking care of their academic needs. I'm just very, very frustrated over this, and now we're in the process of cut. And 1,400, I'm sorry, it's going to last a couple of years or two, and then we're going to need 1,600, plain and simple.
Yeah, there were 8 classrooms that were cut from the original plan. I think it is important for the board, and I know that many of you know, but also for our public to know that, the individuals who are here speaking with you today, none were involved in the early stages of this project, and we have highly skilled individuals who work for us. And so, when I was asked to take, the assistant superintendent duties, the first thing I did is reached out to our team and said, hey guys, help me out with that. And so we've been working together, but, they weren't included at that time either. And so we're all disappointed together. We've really been working together on how we can best approach the project because, my daughter's a Christiansburg High School student. I care about this. And even if she wasn't at that school, I would be, deeply invested. But the team here, we feel the way that you're feeling. And so the goal for today was really to get information that is accurate to our board and our community so that we could make decisions about this project that can really be done and we could move forward with them. And so when you see those numbers like the 10 million for the change orders, that's the industry standard. And so we wanted to put it in there. Could we have cut it? Yes. But when we get down the road and we need change orders, then we would be scrapping and we would be ill-prepared for the job at hand. So I want to applaud the work. Now, Chris, it's his first day, so welcome to the team. But you know what? Our team has worked really hard, and Josh has worked really hard, the whole time to do what he was asked to do. And so the drawings that he's brought to us before were what he was asked to bring to us. And so I think it's important to note that. The unfortunate part is we were promised, we saw drawings that we can't build. And so now the decision is, what do we need to do? I think there's a lot of options. I agree. I don't like the outdoor walkway idea. I think through the things we talked about today, we're probably all coming up with options if we know light doesn't have to be in every room, because we've tried to start talking through, but we don't want to get too far down the line and get off track with what the goals of the board would be. I think there's a lot we can do if we know what those parameters are, because we've got intelligent team of people. We sit all of us together, from architecture to our builders to our team, at what I call a league of engineers, every other Thursday meeting to talk about this. So there are tons of people invested, and we can get it right. It's just really making those decisions. What do we cut? I don't think we can cut any more classrooms. As I said, 8 classrooms were cut already. So that has to stay a focus for us. We know that we're growing. We know that there's new communities that are going to be built and moving in. We know that Blacksburg is right almost at capacity, and they're building new neighborhoods in that area. So size, classroom, for me, since I've been working with this team, instruction has become the priority of what we are looking at. We want to have really great facilities. We want to have wonderful athletics, but most of all, these are learning spaces. And so we really want to focus on that instruction and making sure the students are safe in their building.
Well, and for me, it's good for the community to see these numbers, though, because when I get emails that are saying, I can't believe you're considering spending that kind of money on a high school, and you know what? It takes it. And if you don't have a child in high school, then you've got a grandchild. If you don't have a grandchild, you've got an upcoming grandchild, or their children, or your neighbor's children. Somebody is going to be going to that high school, or frequenting their athletic fields, or spending time watching the drama presentations, or in choral, or in band. It affects a numerous amount of people in Christiansburg. And people have got to learn that it takes money to make it better. It's just how it is. Look at what we spend on houses nowadays. And so this is what is educating our students and employing people in our town, in our county. And so it's good for the community to see what kind of figures it takes to build a building like this, or renovate. But we're not even talking about building a new building. We're talking about renovation. So anyway, even if we got to cut a little bit, I don't like it, I hate it, but I'm glad that the community got to see these figures. So thank you.
Okay, James, so one of the other frustrating pieces for me is, again, we were repeatedly shown designs, and the cost was being cut and cut, and I myself was asking, can we still afford that design with those dollars? And it was like, yeah, we could do it.
We were told we could also
And-
have a track along
That's
with
what I'm
it,
talking
indoor
about.
track.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what we've seen tonight. I'm talking about what we have been seeing for several months. And then the price would get adjusted down and down. And I'm going, can we still build that for that? And it was like, yep, we can do it. Okay, well, so we can still build that for that when we weren't going to get the funds that we would like to have gotten from the supervisors? Yeah, we can do it. Well, we couldn't have done it. And we shouldn't have been told that that could happen to end us up in a situation where we're having to go back to the drawing board to try to figure out how we make things work in a project that is so long overdue. That's a real frustration for me. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for jumping in and saying, okay, let's get this done. Let's figure out how to make it work. But I'm sorry, I'm still not going to be happy because I don't like it when promises get broke and get excited about things that could be a game changer, not only for the children of Montgomery County, but quite frankly, Southwest Virginia.
I'd like to understand why these talented people haven't been here before and why they haven't been involved in the process.
So that's a great question. You know, I can only answer what I know, and I know that they were not involved. They wanted to be involved with the projects. They have great experience. Lee is a civil engineer. You know, we have lots and lots of years of experience here at the table. The only answer I can tell you, I can't speak for those. I mean, I
know.
cannot fathom why they were not included. The first thing I did is beg for their help and said, please, and they were all wanting to be involved in the project.
So Josh, who were you dealing with mostly?
I was mostly dealing with Tommy Krantz and Greg Burgess.
The previous employee. You know, I wish I had
Didn't
an
mean to put you on the
answer for
spot,
you.
sorry.
I
It
can't
is what
tell
it
you
is.
why they weren't included, but we want, you know, they're involved in every step at this time.
Do we know, I mean, was it bad math to begin with before, or, I mean, it's a pretty big disconnect between, and correct me if somebody correct me on the exact numbers, but I thought we'd agreed on around 100 million, so was it
So our
103 or
project's
98 or something like that?
Project's 100 million. So remember, this looks a little different. So while,
Well, and we only had
Josh
90
may
million,
say-
right? I thought we only had 90 million, but Tommy said we'd find the other 10
so
million.
we have we're going to talk more about funding in the next presentation, but what we have put towards this project is the 90 million from our Board of Supervisors and 10 million, which we have secured through grant funding.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that in our next presentation because we need to look at our spending deadlines. I was going to go back to the first question, Ryan.
About people being involved.
Well, I think I was just asking, was it bad
Oh, the
math? Like,
number.
what went wrong here?
So a piece is until the drawing is done in this type of build,
Yeah.
then the individuals who are actually building the project, they don't have it till the drawing's done.
Okay.
So it's not where we do it and then we take the bid. So it was all estimating as we were going.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of
So the
variables.
estimates were
Yeah.
pretty far off, I guess, is where we were.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yes and
And
no.
Josh may
So-
be able to speak better
Yeah,
to
go
things
ahead.
I don't know and that happened while I wasn't involved.
We talked a little bit about, in the beginning, about what we've seen over the last 8 months. We've seen 10%, almost 10% increase month after month after month of inflation. So when it takes more money for you to buy gas and to buy bread and that affects construction costs also. So the inflation has had an impact. The COVID, which I wish we still weren't talking about it, but COVID has had a major impact on delay of materials.
Yeah,
You know,
supply
there-
chain.
And then finally ESSER, you know, the ESSER money has that influx of money where, where the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors are getting paid Davis-Bacon wage rates, which is almost double what they would actually get in Montgomery County. So, or anywhere else. So what's happening is that they're doing that work, getting paid. I don't blame them. You know, if you can get paid double, why would you not do that? So those factors have significantly seen an increase. When you look at the projects that have bid, we really didn't have any school projects bid from May of '21 till May of '22. There really was no school projects being bid at that time for almost a whole year. So the challenge is that we really started getting our data, our real data from actual school projects in May of this year. And consistently, every project that has been bidding has been 20, 30, 40, 50% over budget because we were all working off of old data. And I said until we actually get the numbers from the contractors, it is only estimating and we can only use the data that we have at our fingertips.
And
Okay, so-
another component too is the numbers that we've been seeing. If you think of that first slide, you've been seeing the building costs, but not necessarily all of the FF&E is the fixed furniture and the equipment. That is $5 million. It's not the $10 million that we put in for the change orders. So when you think about the building cost itself, right now it's very close, right? It's at 105. Right, so that's very close. So those were the numbers also that you were hearing before, were those numbers, not necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but not necessarily with all of the other components. So for today, we really wanted to make sure everything was on the slide that you would see at the cost that we thought might be the highest, right? So in terms of what Branch did for us, of course, they're going to cost the way that they do. But in terms of the pieces that we could add in, we wanted to make sure, because they do their piece, we do ours. We wanted to make sure that those components we were bringing were included, and they weren't always talked about in the other numbers.
So even with all the things that have caused costs to increase, still the design that we were being shown and how the numbers, as far as the money that was going to be available, it didn't just happen yesterday. Those figures started to adjust in 2021. They started to adjust that we weren't going to get the funds. And as I said before, we were asking, so is this amount of money still going to give us this amount of building? And it was yes. And then when those numbers decreased again because we weren't going to get the funding, because if I'm not mistaken, those dollars started out at like about 120 million for us to be able to do what was put in front of us. And then when we couldn't get those funds, then it was like, we can still do that. It came down again. Oh yeah, we can still do that. And that was not the case. I don't care what happened with any COVID or anything else, it was still not going to happen because there wasn't going to be enough money to build that design, period. With the dollars that were obviously going to be coming from the supervisors. And that was a push to get to 95 or 90. So yeah, there was a big problem from the get-go.
I think what kind of we need next is our marching orders, in terms of, would you like us to,
A big fundraiser.
there you go. Would you like us as a team to work collaboratively to do what we feel is best to get the cost where it needs to be, focusing on classroom space, light in as many places as we can, ensuring that we're looking at the capacity of the building and focusing on those priorities of instruction, safety, the auxiliary gym staying exactly where it is right now, and then really us working together to decide what we think is going to be best and bring that back to you. I hear what you're saying.
And then, okay, yeah, that's gonna bring us down to the big million. This is where we're at. Then go in, okay, this is what everybody's saying, and then make it all.
So, and maybe, do you all want to come up as well? Do you want to help to answer that? Because it may be good to have Jamie help us address that. It would,
Does that make sense what
contractor, hey, you take 10 foot off your deck, I think we could save that $10,000, but,
Yeah, in this market, and I'm Jamie Branch Builds, in this market, prices change very often, like every 7 days, we're getting price changes across the board. Rough order magnitudes, we can do that roughly, but in this market, we really need to go to the trade partners to get some accurate costs to give you a initial GMP. So yes, we can look at the list that we put together and we talked about at the last meeting, but as far as accuracy, you're going to want at this point to go out and get those prices from the trade partners.
There's also, you know, we're talking a lot right now about the bells and the whistles, but there's a lot that the bells and the whistles have to attach to, right? So there's a lot of structural things that we have to do. There's a lot of things in the building itself that need to be addressed. And, you know, those things can't shift a whole lot. So things that we need to do within our library, within our gym, you know, just things that have to be addressed. They cost a lot of money, and they're not going to shift a lot. So our room for movement, you know, this, I know it doesn't look bare bones, but there's not a lot of flashiness within there right now. So, you know, thinking about making big changes like, you know, on the L and the space there, that's where we're going to get our biggest bang. But again, if we move it up against the wall where we know we need to do reinforcements, then they've got to work with the structural engineers to determine what does that mean and how do we do those things. So I know it sounds like we should be able to, but in a project this big, it's just very difficult to do.
Well,
Yeah, the things to think about are, you know, you're talking about putting building up against the other building, you know, there's underpinning you could get involved, which that's another engineering thing that's going to cost more money. So there's lots of things you have to think about when we're working with the design team to come up with some alternate plans. So, you know, as of right now, we've had a meeting and discussed, you know, what can we do and what some of those changes, but we need to vet that change out a little bit further than where we're at today.
I'm going to tell you, having students to have to go outside to change classes,
So I think to answer your question, again, I will try to, I mean, I'm looking now at the slide 10 here where you actually have the list of things. I think maybe the only thing I would switch is you know, assuming that the first two, reduce new construction classrooms, place more classrooms in existing spaces, reduce size of addition and eliminate bridge connection. I'm counting that as one thing, right?
Can you go to that one? Josh, will you click to that, please?
So I think you have them in the right order of priority. I would probably just switch the last two. Investigate additional design change options, cost reduction. I leave that to you guys. I'm not going to tell you, you know, you guys are the experts on that. But as far as looking to us for, you know, what is within the permissible or allowable, you know, things that we would sign off on, I mean, that sounds good to me, what you've already.
And I think that would be the preference of our team as well.
The next to last one, the stacking, I totally get why you would not want to put an auxiliary gym over the cafeteria. I would not want to listen to a basketball the whole entire time I was eating my lunch. But I wonder if there is a way to maybe do some number of classrooms or somehow use some of that space to add on a few of the classrooms. So maybe it's not the entire cafeteria is open, but a portion of it. Yeah, the front-facing part still is open, but then the back-facing part maybe has some classrooms. I think that might actually be a viable option.
I agree with Ms. Cass. The only thing that kind of concerns me with having anything around or above the cafeteria is the noise. So if you're in a classroom, I know cafeterias can get loud, but I'm sure there's constructional things that can be done to
Remember,
make
it's-
sure that the noise reduction.
It's up high, too. It's going to be
Right.
second level, so it's not going to be like right on the first level where everybody's sitting. I don't know, better soundproofing or whatever, but. Yeah. I mean, I think that would be a very viable way to get some more classroom space, but I'm not you, I don't do this for a living. But I'd be open to looking at taking away some of that cafeteria to help maybe not have to have that walkway and keep the bridge.
I'm just going to add a go team comment here. I mean, no matter what no matter what endeavor you're trying to accomplish, it's always more successful when you bring together a good team, have everybody working together. So it's cool to see this group together. It's the first time I'm seeing a lot of you. Sounds like it's we got a good team working on it. So I definitely have confidence in what we come up with here.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Thank you all so much for your time this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
Welcome
guys.
to our school board meeting.
They're going to stay
Thank you, John.
here
Was
for
there
the next
anything that any of you
presentation.
all wanted to add?
That's a good point. Thank you. Penny?
Thank you, guys. Do you guys-
Anything you guys want to add? Any thoughts, comments? No? Okay, well, being on the same page is probably is a good thing. I'm glad we're all on the same page now. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Hey, Joe, if you turn your mic on.
It's nice to
There you
meet
go.
you. Yeah.
That's why, like myself, never met you. None of you, because we were not allowed. If I did tours at any of the schools which had construction going on, I was told to stay in the back, do not say any questions or anything. So that's why you haven't met.
Well, we met because we ran in the race for eighth. So.
So could you guys like go down and introduce yourself for us, so that way people know and we know who you are?
John Sutton, facility super.
Guys, please turn your mics on. There you go.
Jay Smeltzer, project manager.
Lee Walker, I'm also a project manager, and I actually have only been here since April, since Greg Burgess left.
The big question is, are you coming back tomorrow?
We're all going to answer a resounding yes.
That is at least the hope.
I'm Philip Hash, I'm the Environmental and Maintenance Program Manager.
Well, thank you, all of you, for being here this evening. Appreciate it.
So
luck.
generally, do you guys PM only construction projects, or do you do other project management for the district?
Any type of project that requires like engineering, technical, really into the technical things of it. Like when we get into replacing total HVAC systems, plumbing systems, things like that, where we go out for bid, we have to draw a scope of work and that type of stuff. That's what we do in our office.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
So we're going to provide a presentation to you now. Lee, I wanted to let you know your mic's not on, and Philip, yours isn't on
Oh,
either.
you guys are still staying here. Oh,
Yes.
I get it. So I'm like, why are they still sitting there?
They're staying for the next presentation.
They like those, the front row seats, I guess.
Yes, they're at the Operations Center, correct. And Philip's going to click for me in the beginning, and then we'll move it down. So we're going to provide to you a presentation today on our facilities needs. And the reason is because we want to talk a little bit about our funding. Go ahead. So what we're going to do first is provide you a funding overview. As you see, we are not in a place where, we need to make sure we have the funding for CHS. And then we're going to talk about our facilities needs, priority projects, and then projects that should be addressed that are in our current renovations, and then open that for your discussion. So in terms of a funding overview, the reason we're bringing this to you today is because we have $8 million, a little over $8 million of funds that we did secure. We applied for those and secured those for CHS through ESSER. But those funds must be encumbered by September 30th of 2024. And we are concerned about that timeline because that's, we have this 8 million and there's another 1.9. You'll see in just a second. The 1.9 has a longer deadline on it, but this 8 million, spending it on the CHS project for HVAC and renovations that we had secured the funding for concerns the team. And so what we'd like to do today is share with you, we've worked to identify additional funding sources that we have that could be utilized for CHS, as well as projects that we would like to look at addressing, trying to switch the funding. So that the 8 million, we'd have to apply and get it approved, but so that the 8 million that we have through ESSER, we could put on more timely projects that we could get done quicker and free up funds that don't have that expiration date so that the CHS project has the funds that it needs and we're not dependent on the ESSER funding. And so what you see here before you is us working to look at all of the funds that may be available for us to use for construction. And so the top is our carryover balance from last year. As you know, we've designated that $714,000. It's going to go into our, school construction, but we haven't decided what we want to do with it. Now, that says pending Board of Supervisors approval, because as you know, we have to get the funds reappropriated back into our accounts. So that's, our carryover from last year, and Ms. Miano and I will be going on Monday to the Board of Supervisors for that reallocation. The state construction funds, the 3.15, those are the new funds that were given in the governor's budget to schools this year for state construction. We really lucked out that this happened this year because this is not a regular occurrence. So we're really fortunate. Now, those funds are available now, and they would need to be, everything would need to be paid out and done by June of 2025. We have the balance of our 2.5 cents that we get from the real estate taxes. And so, as you know, our Board of Supervisors provides us funding each year that comes from real estate tax in the amount of about $2.2 million. And so we have a balance of $738,000 in that account. We have that available now, and it has no deadlines on spending, and those funds have not been designated. Then we have this year's funds, the $2.2 million that our Board of Supervisors gives us. Again, no expiration date, and they are not designated funds. We have met with the county, so I want to share that with you, that I did meet with Mr. Meadows and Ms. Hill to talk with them about putting the 2.5 cents from the real estate taxes that we would get for 2024 school year forward. I don't want to go farther than that because I think that is just stretching it a little, but we do have the 2.2 available on July 1st of 2023. And again, they don't have restricted spending deadlines, and they're not designated funds. The ESSER funds that were approved for the CHS project, we have the two accounts. So the first is the $8 million. It's available now, but we have to spend it, as I said, by September 30th, 2024, and pay all the bills out by December. That timeline is coming very quick. As you heard Jamie say, when you're purchasing, things are very far out. Like we may buy something now and get it in a year. So we really have to plan and determine what we want to do with those purchases. And so those funds right now are designated to CHS. We then have the CSLFRF. Got it right this time. And those are for HVAC. It was applied for specifically for CHS. It's $1.9 million, but the deadline is much farther. They granted an extension on those funds. They were originally having to be expended by 24, but we are now allowed to push that out to 2026. So we feel that we can reasonably spend those on the CHS project within that time frame. And then the bond that was issued by our Board of Supervisors in the amount of $90 million. So that's available to us to be using now. We do have a goal of a spend of 85% by April of 2025. We're going to lose anything if we don't. But the goal of the bonds when they are issued is that you're ready to begin that project. And so we would certainly want to spend 85% of that by 2025. But we would, if something were to happen, they have explained to me, it doesn't take the funds away. It's just that's the goal of how we would like to spend them. And those are designated to CHS. So you see we've identified about $109 million worth of funding, that we would have to apply to our projects. And of that, a little over $9 million is undesignated. So before we go too far, I just want to make sure that understanding of why we're doing this and give you an opportunity. This is a work session to ask questions. What we're trying to do is move the $8 million, get it approved for projects that we can get done by 2024, but still make sure we have that money for CHS by using those other local undesignated funds and switching those funding streams between the two. You'll go ahead for me, Philip. Oh, wait, I was going to say, are there questions on that piece? Does that make sense? So just so you know, what can we spend these funds on? Because some of them do have very specific rules. So our state construction funds, that was the $3.2 million that we got this year that does not, the deadline doesn't fall for a couple years yet, 2025, I believe. So those can be used for school construction, additions, infrastructure, site acquisition, renovations, technology, modernizing equipment, school safety, and school safety renovations. You cannot use it for parking lots or for facilities that are predominantly for extracurricular, but you can use it for facilities that are instructional. In terms of the ESSER funds, those are the federal funds. That's the 8 million that we're talking about. So construction projects or purchases of land or buildings, those must receive prior approval from the Department of Education, but minor projects, and it tells us what those are, but those we just get approved through the ESSER application. So if we identified ones, what we would do is put in an application and see if they get approved before we finalize it. And so what that's allowable for is any funds under what is called impact aid. And impact aid is a federal term, and what that means is they define construction as new construction, so it could be a brand new building, right? Remodeling, alterations, renovation, and repairs, under which many activities related to COVID-19 would likely fall. And so there's a variety of projects. You know, a lot of times people were thinking it's just air quality, but it's the things that will make sure that we can keep kids in school and keep them safe. So there is a lot of projects, and with that broad definition of federal impact under that, and these are their words, right? A lot of items will fall. So for them, the terms of construction is the preparation of drawings and specifications like the ones you saw tonight, erecting buildings, acquiring, altering, remodeling, repairing, or extending school facilities, inspecting and supervising the construction of school facilities, and debt service for those activities. So I just share that's a very broad range of expenses. And so this goes again through a more detailed list: school facility repairs and improvements that enable operation of schools to reduce the risks of virus transmission and exposure to health hazards and to support student health needs. Inspection, testing, maintenance, repair, replacement, and upgrade projects to improve indoor air quality in schools, including mechanical and non-mechanical heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, filtering, purification, air fans, control systems, window and door repair and replacement. Developing strategies and implementing public health protocols, including policies in line with CDC for the reopening of operation of school facilities to effectively maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other staff. And then here's the broad one: other activities that are necessary to maintain the operation of and continuity of services. So that means things that would keep your buildings from being closed down so that you can keep schools open in the local education agency and then continuing to employ the existing staff. So there's a broad range of things that can get approved through those expenses. What we're going to do today is provide you two different lists of needs. So the first list, you know, we have current renovations. We have renovations at Bellevue, Christiansburg Elementary, Christiansburg Primary, and Christiansburg High School. In addition to those, we have priority needs. And so these priority needs are needs that have been identified by the team in front of you, as well as the individuals that work for us in our building. So John's team of HVAC technicians, our electricians, our plumbers, our skilled trade workers, all of those individuals have been and are always collecting data on what we need to do within our schools. And there have been some projects that need to be addressed that have not been addressed. And so that team has been bringing those forward, but has not had the opportunity to share that with you all. And so I want to say that we have an amazing team, you know, the folks that are here, but those that are in our buildings, keeping them running and maintaining. They work so hard, and they had really been strapped to be able to get the resources that they needed. And so what you're going to hear tonight from our leaders is a presentation of things that have come directly from our staff members. And then those will fall into safety, roofing, HVAC, exterior grounds, plumbing, and electrical. And then the second list you're going to see are our current projects. So Bellevue, Christiansburg Elementary, Christiansburg Primary, Christiansburg High School's not on there because we haven't started it yet. But within those three buildings, you know, two of them we're just about done with, and the other is supposed to be finished in December. But there are some things that were not addressed in these renovations that you're going to hear about tonight that we feel that need to be addressed. So if they're in a current renovation, but they are emergencies, you're going to see them on the priority list. Okay? So we scaffolded them, that we took them out of it being a current project if it was something that moved to the top of that priority list. The difference you'll see is something like we might need to address HVAC as opposed to painting. Painting is going to be on the current renovations list, but the HVAC that might need to be looked at would be on a priority needs list. So when you see those, just keep that in mind, that you may hear some of these schools in the first list, but that's because the team has elevated them to that level. The goal being for us to work through this, and then you all to be able to tell us what it is you would like us to do so that we can continue moving forward. And then each member of the team is going to present their specific area. Of course, Mr. Lowe is new to us today, so we're not going to ask him to present anything. But he's going to sit there to hold his team together. Oh, I know. We move fast around here, so, you know. All right. So if you would start for us, Mr. Hash.
Okay. And I'd just like to say I'm grateful to be able to speak to you and to be able to try to address some of these issues that we've known have been there for a while, and we'd like to get some of these monsters out from under the bed if we could. The first one that we have listed here is at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. We have had water pressure issues on the fire sprinkler system for a while there. The amount that you see there is listed for a pressure reducing valve and a water pump for that system. We've had both high water pressure issues and low water pressure issues on the supply side of the fire sprinkler system. That could prevent, it could be some difficulties in trying to fight fire effectively if those issues don't get addressed. So that's...
Mr. Hatch, real quick if I could, I forgot to say, if you'll note quote or estimate, some of these are actual estimates, but, you know, as we shared earlier, we continue to get estimates and people get a little frustrated. You know, if you ask the same company 12 times for the same estimate and you never, employ them for a service. So some are specific estimates that we have, and others are our best guess based upon our last estimate or on their professional knowledge. So these numbers would change a bit, but some are specific and others are still a cost estimate.
So let me ask the question just for clarification.
Yes.
So you're saying at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, we have known for a while that the water pressure of the sprinkler system was not where it should be, and if there should be a fire in that building, it might not do the job needed to keep those children and staff safe to get out.
So we have, and John, you can help correct me and help guide me a little bit on the history. But at the beginning of the construction of that building, we have had issues with the water line that supplies that building, as far as high water pressure. I think at one point we had some leaking on that line. I'm not exactly certain the history as to what the causes that we decided were on that, but yes, there were some high pressure issues aren't as critical as the low water pressure issues. The high water pressure issues, if gone unchecked, could cause potential long-term damage to the system. The low water pressure issues could potentially affect the spray radius of the system. So yes ma'am, affect the ability to fight fire if not addressed. Those issues became apparent within the last couple of years. The high water pressure issues have been known since not long after the building was constructed. So, and those are... Yes. Correct.
Sir, I'm sorry. Sue, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Yeah, these are my kids. This is important to me.
Yes.
Well, they're all my kids, but this is my district. But, so could you say that because of the delay as to why it would be more costly and more over time? Like, is this something that over time has caused it for that to become even worse? Or if this was fixed immediately, I don't know, I'm just looking at if we had known sooner, would we be still looking at the same cost, or has
It's kind of hard to speak to that, but I would say that the number would probably be close to that. If you split it up between the two, there are two distinct projects, one being the pressure reducing valve, which deals with the high water pressure. That's the least expensive of the two pieces. You're looking at $8,000 for that piece. The most expensive piece is the fire pump, which would involve a considerable amount of change to the piping system and maybe some minor changes to the structure around the control room to be able to house that piping. And so I think we would probably be looking at the same amount. And I will also note that we have worked with PSA to try to resolve some of it, and they have been able to improve it some, but we are still below what the design pressure for that system was. And so we need to take a look at, we need to try to address this.
Fix it. Yes, yeah.
And we have third-party inspectors that come through and check this periodically, and they've noted the decrease, and they've made us well aware that this is a potential problem. So it's something that if PSA is unable to effectively help us with pressure on their side, then unfortunately it comes on to our side, which is, it's the expensive solution of the two, but we're to that point.
So $8,000, I'm sorry, $8,000 would have potentially fixed the high pressure
Yes,
from the
that would-
very beginning.
That will fix the high pressure side of the issue, yes.
Why didn't we do it?
Well, in the beginning, I think we're trying to rely on PSA to help us try to solve the pressure issues on that side, because we don't want to incur the cost if we don't have to.
Correct. To answer your question, there is not a safety issue. We would not operate that school if there was a problem where we didn't feel comfortable operating. Basically, it'll go this way, this way, this way. It just keeps fluctuating and everything, and it makes our system act weird, but it's not an unsafe issue. I mean, it makes it go off when it's not supposed to go off. It's the biggest problem with the high pressure.
But with the low pressure, correct, is a separate.
And the low pressure is just basically to make it balance, to work better.
Okay, so if you're saying that when the pressure is low, and if just by chance, one of those days when it's going the other way,
Yes, yeah.
right, and there should be a situation where those sprinklers needed to go off, and the spray was not at the volume it needed to be, that's a safety issue, period.
Oh, let's move on to the next one. We'll probably have a question on every single one.
And unfortunately, not all of this is going to be warm and fuzzy, but these are the things that we need to take care of so
Well,
that
yeah.
we improve.
You should have brought it to us 2 years ago.
And this next one is not as dire, and
I do want to say real quick, I know you're not saying to him.
I know,
you
I'm not
should.
saying, it should have, not you should have.
Yeah,
It
I do want
should
to
have.
make it clear that.
My apologies, I did not mean it that way.
That's fine. I completely understand. I'm right there with you on all of these. And just so you know, I have investment in the system as well, because I have students in Auburn Elementary School, and I deeply care about these things. These things keep me up at night. Christiansburg Middle School, synced strobes for the fire alarm system. This was an issue that was raised by the code official, and it's in the state fire code for strobes to be synced. So this amount that is listed here would actually take care of two potential issues. One, it would address the syncing of the strobes, and it's for potential for issues with folks who have epilepsy, or those things trigger that. The second issue that it would address is our fire alarm panels, even though that building was constructed 2001, 2002, I think it was 2001 is when this panel, that's the age of it, they're becoming obsolete. The manufacturer is no longer carrying the parts for the panel itself. So in the situation where we had a lightning strike or the board and the main panel burns up, we can't replace it with parts. We have to replace the entire panel. That takes time. That we may not have in the middle of a school season, a school year. So again, this would address the code officials' requirement and concern in addition to the obsolescence of the equipment.
Okay, so, got a question.
Yes.
Just clarification.
Yes.
So, are you saying when the building was constructed, these panels were already becoming obsolete, or they're obsolete now?
They are obsolete now. Not to get into the weeds too much, but the company that manufactured the panel was purchased by another company that, as they all do, they have planned obsolescence. They have limited warehouse space to be able to store parts in a way to cut. So this is a program, and then too, you also have to think the panels are basically a computer, and at a certain point, you have to, you get the next model. So that's kind of where we're at, and that number is an estimate to replace both the panel and the devices, a one-for-one swap for the devices in the school. The next line is a fire alarm system wire fault repair, and that number may be a little bit high, but I wanted to make sure we want to make sure in the estimate to cover the worst case scenario. So this addresses a connection issue with a flow device on the fire sprinkler system. I will stress this isn't as high of priority. The device that is connected to the flow, the sprinkler system on this just lets you know that the main valve is off or is being turned off. It's a tamper switch. So, but it is a requirement that it is functional. We want to make sure that it works. The line that runs to that device is, we have earth ground faults on it, so we've got some issues with that line. It needs to be replaced. It likely could have been replaced during the renovations, but it was not addressed at Falling Branch, and we need to make sure that it gets taken care of. Code official has noted it, and so we want to make sure that gets addressed. The next one is Montgomery Central Op Center replace fire alarm system and new devices. We have made, in the process of doing the renovations at the Op Center, we've gotten a good piece of this already in place. We just need to make sure that we need to tie in the rest of the campus onto the existing new panel that we have now. So this price would be a continuation of that replacement. So we can use the new panel that we have for the bus garage to tie in the middle building and Montgomery Central, which is what I'm be most concerned about. This would allow, and it will also do a replacement of the devices, a one-for-one swap. The new panel would allow us to dial out, so it automatically dial out if we had a pull station that was engaged, which we currently we have now only because we've tied it into the new panel, but right now, if a fire were to happen there, the fire department has to respond to the panel in the boiler room at Montgomery Central, or at the Op Center, to then know which building the fire is in, to then respond to that building. So this would improve response time for the fire department, and it would make that a lot more safe for our students that are there and our staff that are in the other buildings.
And how long did you say we've known about this?
This we have been aware of for at least we knew since 2019 that we needed to do something when we were looking at renovating that building. And, you know, we've known about some of these issues with obsolescence of the fire alarm panel since at least 2018. The next line we have, $30,000 to replace the obsolete fire alarm system and devices at Shawsville Middle School. And it's the same issue with this as with the others. We've reached the end of the part support for that fire alarm panel. A lot of the devices there were from a previous panel, so those probably the 70s or 80s for some of those devices. So we need to go ahead and this is one of the oldest systems now that we have. So it would be a good idea to go ahead and move forward with replacing those. This would also allow the ability to monitor the fire alarm system with a phone line, which we do not have that capability at Shawsville Middle School at this point.
And how long have we known about this?
That's been at least since 2019 that we've known about or 2018 since we've known about the obsolescence of the system. And I've been pushing it as a project since at least 2019.
There's a pattern here.
I've been here since 2017, by the way. Auburn Elementary School, again, replacing the obsolete fire alarm panel. The quote that we received, we should be able to use the devices that are in the system. We would just use a hybrid panel to tie those in. If at some point any of these replacements, if we just do the panel, we could go back later and then have the capacity to add devices to expand the system if we need to. Right now, we don't have that ability at in some of these older panels. We can't expand the system. We can't add things to it if we need smoke devices or things of that nature. And this panel was original to the building 1998 at Auburn Elementary School.
$239,000, we could fix all of this.
Yes.
And all these,
So, yeah.
all
that's what
these
we're
things
working
that
on
should
now.
have been done, like, okay.
Yeah, but it's still important to understand that these situations could have caused or would cause fatalities of children in this county because they have not been addressed in a timely manner. That's the bottom line.
Not because of these people.
Exactly.
No, and the systems are obsolete. They are still, these systems that Philip is speaking to, they are still functioning, but getting those parts and getting the repairs, and that's why, again, I know there's a lot coming to you guys today, but that's why this long-term facilities plan that was supposed to happen last year, that we had been told all year that had been happening, the team shared with me, it was the day that I was appointed interim superintendent that they began that work. And not because of them, but because that was the day that they were asked to begin that work. And we should always have a long-range plan for our buildings. Our Board of Supervisors does provide us money to look at this and address these needs. And, moving forward, I would say, we're going to make it happen this year, but it should be something that there should always be a long-term plan for our building needs. You can't just fix them, money doesn't fall out of the sky. And so, as Philip shared, he said these things stress him. They bother him, and he has been bringing them out. But I know it's a lot to digest, but we wanted to give you all the information that you needed to have today.
Well, I'd also like to say that you should never be losing sleep at night worrying about our students, and that if you think something needs to be done and it's not being taken care of, you need to make sure you tell somebody else. So don't ever feel like you got to lose sleep over that. You guys feel like, you
Well,
need...
come to us if you don't think anyone's going to listen.
I don't sleep, so.
I appreciate that. And And I should also too mention that we do third-party annual inspections per code, and any issues, deficiencies that we find in the system, they get addressed and they get repaired. So it's not that we don't have functional systems, that there is a, you weigh risk versus what needs to be done, and there are other priorities too. But you make sure that you try to balance that out. And we have replaced some of the older systems. We have had systems that were 1963, 1970 systems. Those have been replaced in the last 2 years. So those took higher priority to some of these newer systems. But now we're at the point where we need to start talking about these.
I appreciate that, I really do. But there's so many other things that have been taken care of that were not at this level, and the funds should have been spent here, and they weren't. So no matter what we've been doing with everything else, no.
I'm not trying to defend that. I'm just saying that, we have been working on this, and they, so.
And I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
The next piece that I was asked to speak about is some of the safety issues that we're looking at. And that needs to be a part of when we're talking about some of the needs, because as we're all looking at how we can improve the safety and security of our buildings. And we placed a value in there, and it's somewhat of a placeholder because we are expecting some recommendations from a safety study that's forthcoming. And some of the things that we expect to come out of that study, recommendation for additional badge readers, cameras, and improvements to security of some of our entryways, vestibules. So that's why this number, $1 million, is in here.
To be honest, we just kind of picked a number there. But we know that we're doing our long-term facilities plan, and we also know that Mr. Gordon's going to be doing our school safety plan. And so in addressing our needs, we didn't want to say, hey, let's spend every penny, because we know there are going to be things that would come out of that. We're going to be engaging our community and our teachers and our staff. And so we just wanted to say, we feel that at least we felt that $1 million should be earmarked so that if things come, we are able to address those, and to make sure that we say it's a priority, that also we continually address our safety needs and keep the things that we need in our schools safe. So again, it was a number we picked. We looked at, we had about $10 million with projects, or $9 million, and so about 10% of that being to address school safety. Of course, you all could choose to do whatever you would like, but we wanted to make sure to earmark money so that when the study comes out, you're able to respond if you would like to do so. Thank you, Philip.
I'll pass it to my colleague, Lee. Or John.
Oh, don't sound so sad.
Would you turn your mic on, please?
I guess you drew the short straw on this one, huh?
straw. Very short straw. Mine's broke. Look at. There we go. I get to talk about roofs. BES. 36,000 square feet of roof that we're gonna have to replace. We found out about this in 2016. That's when the date went out on it.
But didn't we just renovate BES?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we renovated it, we didn't fix the roof?
Not touch the roof, no ma'am.
This was one that Jay may want to speak specifically to the roof.
Yes. We are currently doing renovations to Bellevue. When I was given the projects in here, take this project, you'll be running all these school projects. I was like, okay, what about the roof here? Because I knew about the roof at that building, because there are actually built-in troughs in the ceiling to catch water running out the building because it leaks so bad. I was told that was not in the project, they would address it at a later date. and told us to drop it. So that's why it was not done at that time.
So we're renovating a building that
Yes, ma'am.
the whole roof is in critical condition.
Yes.
We're running troughs to keep it from falling in.
Not to fall in, just to catch the water.
Right, but if you weren't catching that water, you put, it
The
would
roof
fall
would
in.
fall.
Yeah.
Right.
And is there a reason it wouldn't have been done with the, I mean, I'm not a builder. I mean, maybe some of our building people know better than I, that are out in the audience, but would it have made more sense to fix something like that during the renovation, or does it make sense to do it separately?
You normally would address those type issues at the beginning. It'd be part of the project, because you want your building envelope to be secure and
Right.
sealed and
I would-
tight.
I mean, I'm.
You wouldn't want to build your house or do renovations in your home with the roof leaking like, or it has to have buckets in the ceiling, for no other term. It was brought up, like I said, it was not in the budget. I don't think it was originally considered in the cost when they moved all of the money around for the 3 different schools for those construction projects.
So this picture up here, what
Yes.
does that show us?
The red shows the areas of the roofing that needs to be replaced. That is an old built-up type roof system that the insulation under it is totally saturated, has some roofing testing done and some infrared testing done on it. Everything you see in the red needs to be totally ripped off down to the deck material and replaced. These parts in the yellow need some extensive repairs, but they're not as in anywhere close to the same condition as the red areas.
It's greenish.
Green is yellow.
Greenish yellow.
Up there, it looks more yellow than it does. Okay, that's one.
It's the same at CES. I'll go ahead and address
Duplicate
that.
that, because CES.
CES, if you notice on the drawing, you have the little red area. That is right over the new admin office. Matter of fact, it's over the AP's, it's in the AP's office where it is actually a leak above their desk of a brand-new, currently renovated office. So the areas in red there, that section would need to have replacement, the same
And
type
how long has
thing.
that been leaking for?
Oh, that was from the penetration where
Different
they put a
penetration.
unit on the roof. It's not been leaking long, but,
Not-
Oh,
not
it
as
hasn't
long as
been
that.
but we found out in 18 that it's ready for repair.
Yeah, the red has been there since,
The red's been there for some time.
Okay.
And the yellow is the repairs, and the green area, which is a PVC type roof over the annex area at CES, is the newest roofing system we have there, and it's still in good shape. Just-
And this is also a building we were doing renovations on.
Yes, ma'am.
so you'll see these two come back at the end when we do our current renovations. So we'll show you the projects that for these schools did not make this list, but we're also going to bring it back so you can see everything within the current renovations that need to be addressed.
Okay, so what would be the timeline for the areas in the yellowish green, you know, what you're looking at, before they would go red?
The yellow areas, you may get 5 years out of them depending on weather and other factors. You know, it depends a lot on how hot of summers we have, you know, because it causes expansion. We have really cold winters and a lot of ice, a lot of load. It can cause more cracking, especially around the curb areas. So I would say maybe 5 years. That's why they need to be addressed now. If we can address them now, it extends, because what we're going to do is, while I
We're
don't wanna get-
recommending, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get deep into this.
Okay,
So you're recommending the yellow and the red? Okay.
Yes, I'm
That's what
recommending
that
yellow
amount
and red,
represents.
not the
Okay.
green. The green is okay. We're good for that. We're fine.
And that would bring the yellow and red to the same warranty. Right?
Exactly.
So it's not then aging them at different ages, it's just we can address them in
Ask
different
them.
ways and then give the roof the same warranty across.
Not have any major roof issues there.
Not green, not blue, just good.
No, green is
everywhere.
good. Green is good.
And Ms. Morgan is here, you know, she knew that we'd be discussing her score this evening, so she did come. And so we, you know, if you have any questions for her as well, she's able to be here if you wanted to address this.
So I have a question.
Dr. Hewitt's here as well.
Yeah, so I have a question. So before the renovation started, were there leaks with the roof before the renovation started? What localities in the building?
We had them on the stage, we had them in the main hallway, we had them in the foyer area, and not about all of those, but I can.
Junior three, yeah.
Around the skylight.
Around the
That's
skylight.
why we omitted him, right?
But
That's what was going on with it. Thank you.
Not a renovation thing, but roof's old, known about it since 2015. Still used by the group down there, so that's a high, medium priority. Shawsville Middle, my Batman down on the end, been chasing bats down there for a while.
Yeah, so
That's Philip's new nickname is Batman.
we've had an issue with bats entering around the fascia, the metal outside edge. There was a detail, a roofing detail, where the lower portion of that was open to the building, the building cavity, so they were able to go in. So we repaired that on the majority of the roof that had that issue. What neglected to get done was a section around the kitchen, and we're continuing to have bad issues, so we need to, this number would address the remaining portion of that.
So guano, bat droppings, which is deadly. What is happening?
So, from what I understand, and I'm leaning on some of my pest management contacts, well, and honestly, we don't fully know what the condition in that space. Fortunately, it's not a plenum, an area where we have airflow, so it is not, should not be entering into the building itself, through the building envelope. But that is a potential concern if it's disturbed.
Somebody needs to disturb it and get it out of there. And you said this was over the cafeteria?
Kitchen, cafeteria roof. The gym has been an area where we've seen a lot of activity, and that's been near one of the areas where they've entered that we closed up.
I mean, that stuff doesn't deteriorate. It just becomes more toxic.
Yes, ma'am. It stays there.
I'll give you $5,000 to take it.
Those are the roofing priorities. Yep.
There you go.
So next, we're going to go through the HVAC, and I think we can probably blow through these a little bit quicker. But, John?
I get 10 phone calls a day from there.
That
We cannot
system-
find compressors. They go like hotcakes, product we can't find. CES, Annex, that was not addressed during construction, right? No. That's another one that slid through the crack.
Which is where we have mold issues because of water.
That is that wing, yes, ma'am.
And we didn't address that.
Ma'am. AES cooling tower repairs, that's just more of a maintenance issue before it gets too bad and have to replace it. BES, replace media center, kindergarten, rooftop units. Another one that slept through the cracks. We've known about them, it says
What do you mean by
18.
slip through the cracks?
Yeah, it's
I think what he means is they were chosen not to.
They got
be
VE'd out. They just, we decided to spend the money somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
That's what it boils down to.
Well, we didn't decide.
Yeah, we did.
I know, I get that.
Okay, but
I wanted to clarify that slipping through cracks makes it sound like you guys forgot it, and I
No,
know that that's
they
not
knew.
what it was, so wanted to clarify that. Okay.
You said the
Six-
hard-
Rooftop units, Harding, that's just an age thing. They need to be replaced.
And one thing with KIPS that I want to add is at KIPS, when those units go down, like John said, When we lose a compressor on those units, because of the age of the compressors and the type, there are no replacements. So if we lose 2 units in a classroom, or 2 compressors go out, we could not have class in that classroom. We've lost the classroom. It could eventually turn into not able to have school in that school if we do not get these units addressed quickly.
Yes, sir. That's the AC, it's in the middle of the buildings, it's piped out too. Yes. Ooh. Let me look into that. I don't think we have. We added some AON units, which are just gas-fired units for heat. But
Oh, they were going to be done.
yeah, I'm not.
I was gonna say, if anybody knew about that, I think
Yeah, that
Sean
would
would
be
know
me.
if
That'd
they
have to
were.
come through my office, yeah. I don't remember. We put several compressors, but that's been like 6, 7 years ago. And how long you been on? Okay. So I'm pretty sure I hadn't done anything on it.
Running that, trailer unit.
Right, the modular. Correct.
That's why I distinctly remember having these thoughts. I thought they were like, at least that's what I was told. I mean, it'll be obvious.
I will check on this. All right, next slide.
So the next are building exterior concerns, and again, although they're outside, they rose to the level of priority for us.
Bellevue kitchen loading dock brought to our attention from the supervisor of nutrition. It's just not good. It needs to be reworked. It's
Deteriorating, falling apart.
Yeah, it's falling apart. It's terrible. Eastmont Elementary, through the wall flashing. It leaks when it rains and blows a certain way. I would not call that a super high priority, but it is expensive to fix. Shawsman Middle School, out of the, what's it called, the annex? Annex wing, there are concrete steps that go out to the parking lot. It's part of an egress. They are deteriorating and need to be replaced.
They are very concerned about this.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like Philip, I lay awake at night and worry about that. AES parking lot is 24 years old, 25 years old. It needs to be resurfaced. Eastmont High School athletic track, y'all heard about that. We've got pretty good pricing for that. We just added this one, didn't we? High school sprinklers for the baseball, softball fields. We've done 1, and we need to do 6 more.
So one of the
Just to
reasons.
make everybody equal.
Yeah, there it is. One of the reasons this makes the list is because in some schools, the boys' teams have one thing and the girls' teams have a different thing. And so we are supposed to provide equal through Title IX to both of our groups of athletes. In some schools, it may be the opposite way, but really just, it made the list because of the inequity between the teams in the different locations. So in terms of being a safety, it's not a safety concern, but it is a concern regarding how we are supposed to operate.
Dig in.
I got a lot of stuff, John.
Everything on
Montgomery Central, water lines are extremely old within the building.
So we bring water into the school.
It's
So we
provided.
bring, I don't know, I guess when I became the deputy, I found out that they were bringing their own water. And so we started providing water. But, we provide bottled water and we bring that to the school. That is something that we need to address.
Dixmont High School control lighting for the auditorium.
So again, this is not a safety issue, but our students in those classes are not able to do what they need to do within those classes, so it is impeding their ability to have instruction in those spaces.
Slide it.
So this is a priority list we kind of put together. You know, we could group them in different ways, and certainly some items could move up and some could move down, but it was a chance for the team to look together and, you know, in case you all wanted to know how they would prioritize these at this time. That is their ranking at this moment.
Three of my questions. So here's my question. If the board approves this, and because some of these, I think from what I was hearing, it would be difficult to do while students are in school, right?
Yes,
Especially with
ma'am.
electrical panels and things like that. So there are things that may not be at the higher priority, but can be fixed immediately, and we can go ahead and take care of those things, like the concrete stairs. I mean, even the track, that's something that can be taken care of. It may not be high, but it's something that can be taken care of.
Well, there's one thing we have to keep in mind also, is like if we do, for example, the fire panels that we need, some of these things have lead times on getting them here. Air conditioning units, some of those are running 12 months. So if we ordered them now, we would be 12 months before we got them, but you still have to order them, pay for them to get them. Roofing, if we get the proposals and everything in by December and get it awarded by December, we would be able to get material, hopefully, and get it installed the following summer. So
That's a part of why, you know, we are bringing it to you now. Certainly while, you know, I'm kind of serving in multiple capacities, it's like, do you do this now? But the answer had to be yes, because one, these things, once I learned them, they needed to be brought to your attention. And then two, the funding, right? If we decide we want to do things and we're able to reallocate funds, we have to get moving quickly. And then, Ms. Franklin, to your question, what we would do likely, depending on, you know, what you ask us to do, is we'd prioritize based on those things, right? What can we do now? What can we order and get in place for the future? And what aligns with our spending deadlines? You know, it would be kind of a multi-tiered approach of looking at the projects, but those would really be the things that I would recommend in consideration so that we could, you know, we could use the funds that are available and address the needs that need to be addressed while also ensuring that our project, our other project continues to move forward because those bonds have been issued and we have to continue moving forward with those as well as these.
So I have, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, you're good.
I have another, something to add to that list. So we might fix the roof down at Shawsville Middle School so that the bats don't get in. But what the bats have left already, we need to get that out of there. So that's an extra cost to the figure that you gave here, right? Right. Right, and while nobody's in the building. Yeah.
Talked to Mr. Keith this morning. He told me he's caught two.
I appreciate
What you're
it.
going to see next is the projects. So again, these are our current renovations. You're going to see on the left-hand side things that did not make it to the priority list. But on the right chart, I just wanted to remind you so you could see the things we already talked on, the emergency needs. And at the bottom is the total needs that are still in place for those buildings, those two combined. So the individuals working on those projects are going to share that with you.
So at Bellevue Elementary, we spoke about the roofing earlier, so let me tell you a couple other things that were not addressed during the construction project. The playground. The original playground that was installed in that area where the renovated space is now at, the new addition, had to be removed. So it was removed and placed on site just kind of hastily. Yeah,
Right.
thank you, good word. very quickly to get it out of the way of construction. So they moved it over to a side and put a little fence around it, and that is where it has stayed through the entire construction process.
Yeah, because I asked about that.
Yes. The price that that we have there, that $100,000, that is for buying a new type system. The reason we're looking at the new instead of trying to get the old one and reinstalling it and putting new poles on it is because it's already at the age where the plastics have already started to kind of delaminate. And it doesn't make any sense to go and put this back in, spend the money on the new post, have someone come in and install it, and then the thing only lasts us maybe 5-6 years because of the lamination issues, and it would become safety issues, and then we'd have other issues and have to replace it again. So as a team, we've determined it'd probably be a better choice to go ahead and replace it with a whole new one, have the company come in, install it, and start off fresh. The painting of the exterior doors and windows, those are all the exterior door and windows that if you go out there now are the maroonish red colored, kind of rust color. They were not addressed in the renovation whatsoever as it changing them or anything like that. The price that they received there, which John got from an outside contractor, was to go in and do it, prep those windows and paint them to match the yellow that is currently there with the new windows. And all of the interior doors that are changed there, that you see that price there, that $50,000, that is an estimate. I haven't gotten the firm numbers yet. But what that is changing all of the old doors, which are 50 years or older plus, some of the original doors that have been there forever, to match the new doors, which we have in the new addition and in the new admin area. That's what those costs are for. And we've already covered the ones on the right-hand side.
We auction off the doors to help raise the money to put the roof on. Yeah. Hey, there are a lot of alum out there who would like to have a piece of it, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you,
Exactly. That's it.
I would mention before we go to the next project too, that in addition to, when you think about the paint, right, it's not an emergency, but when you're working in a new building that's supposed to be renovated and you have a feeling of walking in and seeing this completely done project, or the folks who are doing our projects and they walk away and they're like, I wish I could have, this doesn't look done. A renovation, in my opinion, should be renovated, and there should not be existing things to come back and address later. And so I would recommend to the board, too, when you look at your facilities planning long-term, that you set parameters. So, processes should outlive people. It shouldn't, it should not be about the individual and the job. It should be about how the school division wants things done. So I would just recommend to you that when we do that facilities plan, we really make sure that we address these things and say specifically, when doing renovations, these are the priorities. Because certainly you all did not know this. Obviously I wasn't aware of it. Individuals were aware of different things, but they weren't necessarily, I think someone said it earlier, they weren't allowed to talk to each other about the concerns that they had. So even the whole team may not have a full range of those concerns. So, I'd say that just to say, I think we need to make sure we're putting systems and processes in place for the school division that outlast any people who are in jobs so that we have consistent ways of addressing our ongoing needs.
Christiansburg Elementary. We did the renovation on the space. We added 2 new big additions to the building. They look really nice windows, beautiful additions. Well, they did not address, we've added all this square footage to the building, which Ms. Morgan has had to hire teachers to fill these classrooms, but they did not have any extra parking whatsoever. So we really have nowhere to park the teachers.
Yes, we do.
Oh,
You go ahead.
but that price there is to put in some, 10 additional parking spaces where the old mobile classrooms used to be in that area there, to pave that, get that in there. It's a very rough estimate for that cost. That's what that is for.
Someone might say, well, you just put green spaces and trees in, can't you take those back? And we are required, when we do projects, to have a certain amount of green space. We are required to do certain things with our water to make sure that we're removing our groundwater and those other things. And so
And
it's not
parking
just as simple
spaces.
as saying, take out the trees and put it back in the parking lot. You know, if we have an approved plan, you know, I think at Christiansburg right now, they're expecting 500 trees. I guess they're going to go on the roof.
Quite a few trees.
You know, and those are things that we negotiate through later, but there are certain, yeah, I'm serious. There are certain things that we just have to do.
But there's a certain number of parking spaces you have for this, have to have for the size of a building.
Exactly, and so many handicap also, yeah.
Right.
So that was just one thing that was not addressed. That's the nicest way to say that.
So how do we get permits if we're not addressing issues like you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces and you're not showing that you're going to have those?
They were using the calculations that they had off of the original classrooms that they had with the teachers that they had and said it was enough. I don't know how they arrived at that and got the permits.
Because it wasn't enough then.
It's not enough, no matter what you do, it's not enough. Yeah, exactly, it doesn't add up. Painting of the exterior doors and windows. Up there, they have the blue, really an odd colored, like
Kind of a muddy-
light baby blue color, which does not match anything, which that needs to be cleaned up the same like out at Bellevue. Yeah,
And on the interior, it's the same color,
yes.
and some of that is even peeling.
Yes, and John's got that on his quote with the exterior, the contracted painters, that's where we got the quote from. Replacing the interior doors, it's the same that we have at Bellevue. I used the same number because it's about the same amount of doors that we just estimated that we have to replace on those. And we've already talked about the roofing areas and the annex HVAC system, which needs to be replaced, which they VE'd out to be able to get it done within the price, the budget that they had. That's what they told me.
You're saying that was in the original.
It was in the original, and that's where I got that number from the original.
So you're saying our needs may exceed that number?
That's what Carl just said.
But that, you have to stay within the original price. Is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am,
I'm
that
sorry,
is, that cost there is a number that I got, the budget number there, the 481,000. That was the system that they originally budgeted, that had on that, and they VE'd out. That's that same type of system.
VE means value
Value
engineering.
engineered out at today's prices. That's what well, when I got that price, which was a month ago. So, yes. CPS. CPS is one that didn't have really any roof issues, nothing that could not be addressed, because it's a little bit of work. Yeah, nothing major whatsoever. That school has been totally gutted and redone. I mean, it's coming along really well, looks gorgeous. Really, it's coming along really well. One thing that was left out, which was brought up, but they said no, was painting of the multipurpose room.
Yes.
It's like it's an uglier yellow than this yellow. It's like a dingy, weird, ugly yellow. That needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Just from a, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. That needs to be addressed. I mean, it needs to be, it's just made so it looks like a new renovated school. And that's one thing that was left out, and that's why I included that in here. Yes, now it is Lee's turn.
Does anybody want to hear
So,
what I have to say?
can I ask, since
Or do
we're,
you need a break, or are you good?
Oh, dang, go
yeah,
How about a break after Lee? There you go.
No, I'm good. I'm good with the break. I'm good
Penny
with
has
the
a
break.
question.
We're actually just about done, actually, so,
I have,
I'm sorry.
I'm perfectly fine. I can stretch or whatever. I'm good. Are you sure? The woman ran a 5K. Okay.
yeah. I just have one more question about the school renovations before we move on. So, with the renovations that have gone on,
Yes.
and different things happening at different times. So you paint, and then someone comes in and they do something different, and they scratch up the paint. And the walls get dirty or door frames fitted here, but now doors fit here, but you can see where the doors were here. All those things are going to get touched up and cleaned up, and so everything looks nice and shiny everywhere.
Yes, Bellevue and Christiansburg Elementary School are currently in what we call the punch list stage. So what we're doing is going through with punch list items, like say I've got 120 at one school or whatever. I mean, I've had up to 300 sometimes after we walk through it. I walk through it, the architect walks through it. Every little thing you see like that, we bring up and write a punch list item for it. Branch, they then review the punch list items, the things that they have to prepare. The contractor, in this case it is Branch. And they go through and they repair these items. We go back and inspect and then sign it off once it meets our satisfaction. So we make sure everything's taken care of, tightened up, painted, touched up, caulked. No loose ends is what we try to do as best as possible.
Thank you.
So I just want to
We
say,
have to start by saying, Lee's two children both won their category
Yes, they did.
in the race for
First
Ace. They both got their category, so I just wanted to brag on that.
and I won an Echo Dot also, which was great. So that's beside the point. Anyway, since joining the facilities department, I've pretty much been tasked with any project involved with the operations center. And I just want to say that I'm really happy to be a part of the team, and I'm excited about doing whatever I can to help. So the operations center that we moved to at the previous location, we had a maintenance building, storage sheds, and a tire storage shed. And in moving to the new facility that we're at now, we don't have any of those. We don't have a maintenance building, storage sheds, or a tire storage facility. At the previous location, we are still using storage sheds until our current lease agreement ends at that previous location, which is December 1st, 2022. So right now, we have a place to store our tractors and mowers and equipment like that, but we don't have a maintenance building to work out of or a building to store our tires in. After December 1st, 2022, we'll pay $184 a day to use the old bus garage and the storage shed. We also currently have a building that's owned by the town of Christiansburg that we rent on a month-to-month lease agreement for $2,750 a month. And that is our current only area that we can store materials in. So basically, that took the place of the maintenance building that we no longer have. From what I understand, the town of Christiansburg can pretty much terminate that month-to-month agreement at any time for their needs. And I'm not sure what the future needs are for that area. There's some construction that's possibly going to take place where that building exists, and it'll go away. I wanted to say that since working at the operations center, so I've also been doing the current parking lot for the buses. I've been working on that project. But I've worked closely with a lot of the maintenance guys, and I feel that this is a need, they have to have a place to work out of. And so I just wanted to kind of elaborate on what these buildings are used for, other than, the storage sheds. So they need somewhere to store their tractors, their equipment, salt. The maintenance building they use to store materials like ceiling tiles, filters, floor tile, paint, lumber. In addition to that, they do repairs in the buildings like for mechanical systems, welding, fabricating, their carpentry. They have their shop equipment set up in there. And then the tire storage shed is actually a requirement. The bus garage has to have a fire-rated building to store new and used tires in. So we don't have any of those right now. Aside from that, the state
there's a state-regulated stormwater pollution prevention program that prohibits outside storage of materials and equipment at our current site. And also, the town of Christiansburg, with our zoning, there's a conditional use permit that also does not allow outside storage of materials and equipment at our current site. The next piece of that is the bus charging stations, which we need to incorporate into the current parking lot construction project. And that was not, I think that at the time, we didn't know exactly what equipment we were going to have. And so we proceeded with the parking lot construction project, not knowing how the bus charging stations needed to tie into that. So currently, we do have some other charging stations that we've already purchased, and we're in the process of installing them. One at Christiansburg Middle School, one at Price's Fork Elementary School, one at Eastern Montgomery High School. We also have one already stationed at the old bus garage in Cambria that's functional. When we move out of there, it will go to Auburn High School. So in the next month or so, those should be in place and be usable for the current buses that we have. The installation that will be concurrent with the parking lot construction that's going on now, that, in my opinion, should be completed at the same time that the parking lot will be completed in February 2023. So we need to, put conduits in and run the wiring and do the installation of these permanent bus charging stations in with the parking lot project. Otherwise, we're going to finish the parking lot, and we're going to go back and re-dig up half the parking lot to put this in. And the pricing, I'm sorry, but I didn't go through, but the pricing up there goes with what I was, so the equipment storage sheds, these are prices that we actually got budget quotes. The bus charging station is, that's an estimate. And then the last piece is Montgomery Central. So when the gym was converted to the new bus garage, Montgomery Central lost any recreational space that they had. And so we would like to put in a basketball court outside for them to give them a recreational area. So there is there's a design process. I feel like if we were given the go-ahead right now, I'd say 6 to 9 months. I think we could have that. Correct.
Probably
9 to 10 months.
Yeah.
about 4 months.
And, I mean, I'm not sure if that equipment can go to other schools. I mean, I don't really know.
The hard part we have too with some of it is we're doing so much parking at one time. So like our employees who work at the operations building, we're doing the parking lot. So they don't necessarily have anywhere to park. So they're actually farmed out to different locations.
Yes.
Only a number of employees who work in that building can park there. Others have to park their vehicles somewhere else. We have the work vehicles, say they're, driving a van and doing HVAC. They may park their car somewhere and get into that vehicle. Well, we're also having problems with parking because of what we're looking at with CHS, right? And so some of those individuals are parking there now, but as soon as we start the project, they can't park there anymore. And when the kids come back, that's a parking issue as well. We have other, CES, we don't have enough parking there. So we've been trying to farm out the parking as much as we can, but it has definitely become cumbersome for our employees to have to do that. I don't know how they ended up rock, paper, scissors, who gets to actually park. But
I'm not sure, as far as the mowing equipment or tractors, John, can we park those at any of the other schools, Temple? Like, do we have another place to put them?
And we want to keep them safe.
Yeah, that safety is also an issue. So,
So where would we put it?
So if you look on the.
oh, yeah, so on the site plan, if you see the two red buildings, the one in the corner, that would be the maintenance building, and then the long skinny would be like bays, they're pretty much open bays that, with roofs at the, and then the tire storage, there's a little red,
Yeah, I see it.
yeah,
Right up against the building.
So is that an ideal location to have that, even though it's, designed to make sure if there's a fire, it's going to be contained, to have it right there next to the building?
It is a fire-rated building,
Yeah.
so it's made for that purpose. And the tires are so heavy, and we can speak to that, she's dealt with down there. They're heavy, those tires, bus tires are really heavy. They can't carry them a long way, so that, it's probably the best location all around. Exactly.
those locations actually have already been approved by the town also,
Okay.
so, yeah. So we,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That means we can move forward as fast as
Correct.
possible,
Yeah.
since it's already been approved.
So, I mean, we would have to put this out for bid. We would have to do the design, which it's a pretty simple design. We could do that pretty quickly, and then we would have to put this out for bid. And, yeah, so one of the things that we've talked about in the current project now, it's actually shown that that area will be paved. And I'm working with the contractor on taking that out because it doesn't make sense to pave that when we're going to go back later
Come right back on
with
top of
buildings.
it.
So if you see where that long skinny line is, like that would be the cutoff where the paving would end. And for now, we would just gravel that area until we decided to put the buildings and then pave that when we finish. They would eventually, but the building would have a concrete foundation. And so we would do that and then pave the area around it. Yeah.
So you can see here where we pulled all of those current renovation needs together for you, so that you could look at net. Now, again, the emergency ones aren't on this list, right? So you saw on each slide the total for each of those current renovations with the priority needs as well as the let's finish the project needs. But this priority list for you is just those items that did not make it to the priority list but are still part of that current renovation. So what this last slide for you is a repeat of the first slide I showed you with the money. And then to the right at the bottom, you're going to see the addition of our needs. So essentially, you see that we have $9,129,126 in undesignated funds. And what we presented to you tonight was about $10 million in projects. So we are over what we have, but we didn't want to just bring you a list for what we have because you may have some other decisions you'd want us to make, and also some of these are estimates. In a dream world, maybe they'd go lower, but we wanted to bring you the list as it is. The next slide just says discussion, but you can either tell us what the next steps are, if you'd like to hear from us what you think, what we think the next step should be. I would leave that open
Fix
for you
it.
all.
Yeah.
Get it all
Yeah.
done. Does anybody have any concerns about spending this money on these items?
What I'd like to do, if we can, is bring you back the list, look at the funds, look at the timing of the projects, and then bring back to you at our next meeting. Here's what we think we can do. within these projects because, again, there's things we talked about earlier. We want to get the right project with the right funding source. Some of these would have to be approved. The longer-lasting projects would have to be approved through, say, if we can, through the ESSER. So if we can work to do that and bring it back to you for our next, not at the joint meeting, but the one after that, then we can have more information for you and a list of here's what we think we can accomplish with the time, the money, and the funds that we have available to us. There were thank you for mentioning that. There were a couple things like the EMHS lighting that we talked about for the classroom. That's something that we talked about, but we didn't vote on,
All the fire stuff and the Montgomery Central stuff and get them going on those things immediately? I mean, the fire stuff we're talking.
We got to get them approved first. Remember, we're trying to switch the funding. So we can certainly work very quickly to do that because we do have some undesignated funds through CARES that we could, while we're working on it. So if you want us to look at addressing those safety needs right away, I don't know if you want us to look at, EMHS, the lighting, we talked about that earlier, but they need that for class.
I will say school's getting ready to start, and I don't know if the board remembers or not, and I don't even remember. We've been told so much. I don't know if that was considered emergency, but when you're talking about instruction for children, and this, I do believe this was mentioned 2 years ago. For whatever reason, it didn't get done. So they've been dealing with this for 2 years already and having issues with that. So
Dealing with what? I'm sorry.
the lighting,
Lighting,
they can't use
Okay.
that, and,
Right.
and there is instruction there.
I mean, I think if you're looking for a priority list, obviously, I don't think there's anything on here. If there was anything on here that was endangering student welfare, I think, I'm not even sure you would bring it to us, right? And this is, I think, what John said, that's not the case. But I understand when you have panels that are outdated and you can't get the, parts for them anymore, that you might find yourself in a pickle and you might find yourself spending more money down the road. So, but I think the ESSER piece, because this is where we started with all of this, right? The ESSER piece I think is important because that's got a time thing on it. So I think the things that we could use ESSER money for and that are a priority, that are in your high priority list, that seems like a natural place for me, for you guys to start in going after that stuff. And I mean, your plan sounds fine, Annie. It sounds like, I mean, obviously we'd like to see all this stuff get done. Obviously some of it needs to be prioritized. I think it'll all get done at some point. But if you're looking for, I think I trust the team on the priorities. I think in general, we probably agree with those things. But let's make sure we don't lose the funding. I think that's the most important thing, and take care of as much as we can within the time frame that we have. And
I'm sorry. So the ESSER funds, that's where it gets a little confusing because those funds were designated for CHS for that project. And if we're going to move those funds, this is what Annie is trying to say to us, if we're going to move those funds to the projects that we've just seen this evening, we need to have that conversation with the supervisors so that they understand we are still going to use the basically 10 million for Christiansburg, but because of the timeline with the ESSER funds being so tight for CHS, and the needs that are here right now, move those funds, but we need to have that conversation with the supervisors first.
Fortunately, we have a meeting on the 29th.
Right.
So we have worked explicitly to plan this in the way that we have so that we could get the information to you first, to them second, and then we would be able to bring you back what we're talking about today after the meeting with them. I did meet with Mr. Meadows and Ms. Hill today to have them review the funding with us and get their feedback and their input. We're trying really hard to work with them and work together on this. So, and then the other piece is we have to get approval. So we can't just move it. We've got to get the state to tell us they will approve these other projects. There's a lot we can get done in the background. And then what I'm hearing is if there's something that we see that may not be applicable to those funds, say like some of it's school construction, we could do, that had been what we talked about this summer with the lighting, that we could use the 3.2 that we got this year because that is instructional. And we believe that it's impeding what's happening. So what I'm hearing is bring that back to you all, but if there's something right away that we feel isn't going to impact the bottom line and we can get it done, to go ahead and do that.
So I'm going to push back like I did before. Sorry, John. Because when we're saying that there are issues with a sprinkler system that today it could be okay, tomorrow not, yes, that impacts the safety immediately of folks. And it, again, I don't believe that this was any of your fault. It was how information was not being communicated. So I thank you all for sitting here tonight and having this hard conversation and helping this board and our community understand what we've been dealing with and making sure that things are getting put on the right track. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd rather plow through if you guys don't mind. We only have a few more things until we go to closed session, so if you're okay with that. As a matter of fact, I was gonna say, the board retreat agenda items, any chance that could wait till maybe the next meeting?
No, we really need to get,
I think so.
Danny, would you be really bummed if you didn't get to talk about the board retreat items? Or-
Danny,
it says Danny
that's-
will present.
no.
Probably means Annie.
Oh.
Mine says Sue. So we will discuss that
Okay, we're
together.
gonna push that next.
I think we had things to jointly talk about that we could recommend, but I see those, yes, that's fine. Do we need a motion to amend the agenda? No?
Okay.
All right.
Then report from the superintendent.
That was real quick, and I will, if I still have it up, but you know what? It went down. I closed my, basically, I was going to tell you what was coming in our upcoming board meetings, but I closed that out, so we'll just skip past me. Other than, we are super, super excited that school's starting tomorrow. Tomorrow's the first day, and that is exciting. Our teachers are excited, and our students are excited. All right?
Let's see, unfinished business, do we have any unfinished business? New business, I'm gonna bring something up in new business. We have been getting numerous, and I know, Mr. Pauly, you have responded to these emails, but we have been getting numerous emails of concern from our English teachers regarding this new Study Sync program. And it seems as though there's a lot of confusion, it seems, amongst the teachers. I've heard from Blacksburg Middle School and high school teachers, I've heard from Christiansburg Middle School teachers, a few different ones. And it seems as though there is consensus among them that at the last minute, they found out that they would not be able to use materials they thought they'd be able to use in their classroom, and now they're told they're forced to use this Study Sync program. And I saw your email, Mr. Pauly, about what the Code of Virginia says. But as a former English teacher at Blacksburg Middle School, I remember my lesson plans, and I remember my 6th grade and my 8th grade lesson plans all revolved around novel units. And these novel units were novels that were purchased not with school funds, not with my own funds. And they were a really important part of our curriculum. And we had very high SOL scores in our schools. And if I was told less than a week before school started that I could no longer, that now I had to use this program that only had 2 novels to choose from, one of which was Hatchet, which was written in 1980-something, and most kids already read in 5th grade. And the other is, gosh, I forgot the name now, but it's one of those A Wrinkle in Time, from 1964. And those are the only two novels that I could use for the whole quarter for my 6th grade students, when I was used to having an Indian historical fiction novel unit with, gosh, a dozen or more novels to choose from, which were all appropriate novels, but are not available through Study Sync. And I look at Study Sync, and it has a very limited, and when I'm being told, oh, they have all these novels, but they don't. They have portions of novels. But we are not giving a book to a child anymore. We are not giving them a novel. Hey, read a book. It's like, read a segment of this, read a segment of that. And that was so much a part of our curriculum. And now 5 days, you tell me, okay, so now you got to go use this and you can't teach this anymore. I would be like, you got to be kidding me. How could you're expecting me now to create all new, or not create, because you want me to give this canned lesson plan that's in this program. And
Yes, we're going to have the presentation that you requested, that the information that you're getting is inaccurate. There are 363 novels available.
But they're not available for all. They're available for everyone, 6 through 12. 300 for 6 through 12. Now divide that by 6. Now you only have 60 novels, if they are, but they're not even full novels. I don't know how much time you spent on Study Sync, but I think I would like to see, so what I'm going to say, I would like to see a presentation of this. I would love to have a teacher come in and present to us what this means to them in their classroom. I would like to see what this means to our teachers.
So I'm happy for us, I think too, we need to do in that presentation an overview of the requirements from law that state what our requirements are in textbooks that we certify that we are going to uphold.
Did the laws change?
No, they have not.
So basically you're saying that we have not been teaching correctly for
Individuals, aren't using approved textbooks. It is very clearly mandated by the code.
So my previous principals were allowing me to use books that weren't allowed.
What I have found is that it has been a systemic problem, and it was not principals, and it was not teachers, because individuals, and I've shared this with you all, the textbook process was not what it should have been, and we've worked really hard to get that in place. It is clearly defined in the Code of Virginia. It is clearly spelled out what you must do. If you look at our science adoptions, that we just did, science adopted the textbooks, and they use the textbooks they're given. When a math book is adopted.
But you're asking teachers who haven't, so the textbooks in the past were a resource. But they really relied on
for the curriculum.
So now you're saying they're forced to use the textbook.
I'm saying that the Code of Virginia requires that we use approved textbooks.
But they weren't told, but see, when.
So we're under new business, and you want to bring this.
And we'll bring this up.
You want to bring this up as something to talk about, and I want to agree with that, because I think, for me, part of the testimony that I heard from some of the teachers is, some of them were on the committee, to help select the material, and they said, hey, when I was on the committee to select it, I agreed, this was great, this is what, we thought, this is a great resource we can use. But then, again, something changed. And where my concern is, and obviously we have to look at the legalities and things like that, and even if you gave me a presentation, I'm not sure that I know enough about this topic. Maybe Sue does because she's taught it, or anyone else on the board to really, figure that part out. But where I get concerned is, I get concerned for our teacher. When you have this many teachers screaming in agony, something has gone wrong with our process of how we got here, right? And I read a great article in the last week from one of the educational publications that we get and whatnot, but it was talking about the teacher shortage, and it's talking about, there's the headline was, there's a lot of bad ideas for solving teacher shortage, but not enough for improving the profession. And this is something this idea is something I'm sure that will come up again, and it'll come up when we talk about collective bargaining, because I think it's related to that too. But, the idea is basically that it's not just that you don't have enough teachers, it's that you're making, we, society, is making the job less attractive. And I just want to make sure that we're not doing things in Montgomery County that are going to be driving away teachers unnecessarily. And when, when a bunch of teachers that were involved in picking a curriculum come back to us and basically say, hey, this isn't really what I thought I was doing. Whether or not we should end up there or not, I don't necessarily want to argue that now, but, something has gone wrong with this, and we're not in a position where I think we can afford to make those types of mistakes with our staff. So anyway, I do think it's worth talking about.
Yes, me, is the law the
No,
law? And I
I'm
said-
not arguing about whether, it's not, the process is not the law.
So I think, yeah,
I agree, exactly.
so we will, as I said, I would like, what I'm asking the board is if we could have a presentation on this next week, is what I was saying. I think it would be helpful for us, and so if I have at least 4 people agree, then we will have a presentation next week, and I would like to have, next week, I'm sorry, I apologize.
After the point, you have the joint and then.
After the
September
joint,
6th.
right. The September meeting, and I would also not only like to hear from the person who chose the curricula, I would like to hear from a teacher. We very rarely I would like to hear what a teacher has to say about it.
So, we've gotten a lot of different types of feedback. It's really, how would you like us to pick, which teacher, right? There's 52 teachers.
It would have to be equitable.
A lead
It would have to be
teacher.
teachers from every district. It would have to be English teachers from every district.
I think that is too a piece of where, it gets difficult. We have 52 English teachers. I think I've received emails from 3 or 4. So you may have received more, but that's what I've gotten counted this morning.
I've received over a dozen emails and phone calls.
So we'll certainly bring the presentation, but I'm just not sure how, honestly, to address the component of 52 teachers and picking which person's opinion is the one that we want to hear,
Okay, well, they can always come to public.
They can definitely come to public address.
And speak. Okay. Any announcements or information?
I have an announcement, and it's just a good thing. One of my haircuts yesterday, I believe, he and his mom recently moved here from, I can't even remember where, but in the roundabout with Grady going into what school you're going to, we just moved here, and the conversation just rolled around. I kind of mentioned I was on the school board, and she said, oh, since you're on the school board, I just want to let you know, this is the best school system that I have been in, and my child is amazed. We are amazed. We've been at multiple locations, and she said, I just want you to know, this is the best we have seen. And I just had to make that announcement because we have so many people in our area that I truly think we're just little, nothing. And I constantly say, I've been to so many conferences, and they go, how do you sister with your colleges? How do you have, all these programs that you offer? How do you have the CTE programs that you have? How do you offer this and that and on and on? And these are big districts, and I don't think people in our community realize what a good system we have. And this is someone coming in and said it straight out. Hey, just want to let you know. So.
Yep, so I'll announce again, Dialogue on Race, the 27th, Saturday after next, 4 to 7 at the Moose Lodge. You don't have to register, but we ask that you would, and everyone is invited. And the theme is education, once again. Yeah. And Christian, the Christiansburg Moose.
It's like,
Yeah, the folks at the Christiansburg Moose Lodge are very, very community-oriented, and there are some wonderful things that they do to help support community and the schools, yeah.
Anybody else? Upcoming school board meetings, just real quick, since I already closed up my laptop, but we have our meeting on the 29th with a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and then we have a meeting coming up, I guess it'd be the first Tuesday, second Tuesday?
It's
First Tuesday.
September 6th is the date.
I don't have my calendar in front of me what date that is.
September
Oh,
6th.
September 6th, it's right here in front of me, in the county boardroom. So, and the Board of Supervisors meeting, I'll be in this room. We'll be starting at 6:30 with dinner, and then 7 the meeting will start. And that meeting, I believe, the audio will be streamed, but it won't be a live video. Okay, so do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss 2 personnel matters?
Second.
Second is made. Ms. Woods, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Mr. Hudson? Ms. Parton? Ms. Cass? 6 in favor.
Okay, we are now in closed session. Where are we doing closed session? I guess back in the